Chapter 1560. Hearing Yin Zhaoge's words, Qiu Shou Immortal's expression froze. Wudong. Gao Qingxian was of the prime clear lineage, and was in the grand virtual immortal realm. Her talents were outstanding, and her strength was extraordinary. A name immediately appeared in immortal Qiu Shou's mind. There was someone more suitable than her to wield the immortal slaying sword, and the immortal trapping sword. Currently, she was the strongest known expert of the prime clear lineage, the Lord of Numinous Treasure's direct lineage, the incongruence Divine Mother, who had attained the grand heavenly immortal realm in the ancient era. Gao Qingxian was from the incongruence Divine Mother's lineage. In the past, when Yin Zhaoge was searching for the immortal trapping sword, he had asked the incongruence Divine Mother to spread fake news regarding the Tai Nirvana, Heavenly Lord on his behalf, to attract the attention of other forces. As a grand heavenly immortal, the incongruence Divine Mother was currently the leader of the prime clear lineage. Her actions would naturally attract the attention of the immortal court, the blessed lands of the White Lotus, the demon race, and the Western Pure Lands. With that, even if the incongruence Divine Mother knew where the immortal trapping sword was, it would be difficult for her to search for it herself. She would be easily intercepted and surrounded. The incongruence Divine Mother was also a pragmatic person. As such, she agreed to Yin Zhaoge's suggestion. With her grand heavenly realm status, she helped Yin Zhaoge and the others to cover for him. In the end, Yin Zhaoge's group would be able to locate the immortal trapping sword and successfully bring it back. And now, to search for the immortal slaying ancient sword, the Taoist faction had adopted a completely different method compared to the last time. The first time, he didn't find the ancient sword. Instead, he found Guangchengzi's severed arm. In the end, he was obstructed by the Horned Head Immortal, the Spirit Tooth Immortal, and Chu Su. After repelling them, Yin Zhaoge changed his way of thinking. This time, they would act as a cover and contact the incongruence Divine Mother to make a move. The incongruence Divine Mother was the one who truly obtained the immortal slaying sword. Namo Amitba. The Red Inferno Yamuni Buddha chanted and said, "Benefactor Yin, good trick. Even though you were prepared beforehand, you still managed to deceive so many of us. It is truly admirable." He looked at Yin Zhaoge and shook his head lightly. "Perhaps, in our hearts, you and the three golden bodies of the great sage pose a greater threat than any other Taoism heavenly immortal." It wasn't because of his potential or future threat, but because of the influence and importance he had right now. At the very least, Yin Zhaoge's usefulness in searching for the immortal exterminating four swords was undoubtedly greater than the incongruence Divine Mother. During the search for the immortal trapping sword, Yin Zhaoge's first spell had caught everyone off guard. It was also because of this that Wang Guan, Chu Su, and the others suffered from a lack of manpower. Since then, the others realized that Taoism had intentions, and more importantly, they had the ability to find and retrieve the four celestial slaying swords, in hopes of recreating the terrifying celestial slaying formation. The key here was Yin Zhaoge. Therefore, there was a slight commotion this time. Although the fake Buddhas, fake Taoists, the Western Buddhist lands, and the demon race were still fighting each other, they still managed to send some people to search for the sword in time. In the end, it was Yin Zhaoge and the others who had drawn their attention this time. The Red Inferno Dvajra Buddha Lord said slowly. "But it's precisely because of this that even though we've lost the immortal slaying ancient sword, it would still be a good outcome if we could keep you here." The Red Inferno Dhamma Lord overpraises me. This Yin is flattered. Yin Zhaoge stood on the shoulder of the North Ocean clone's giant ape and scanned the surroundings. Immortal Qiu Shou said coldly, "Don't be too proud, kid. I'll take you down first, then we'll talk about other things." As he spoke, his body shook, and he immediately revealed the ferocious appearance of a green-furred lion that could swallow the heavens and devour the earth. He opened his mouth wide and bit towards Yin Zhaoge and the others. "The heretics have been developing too quickly these few years. How about we deal with them first, then we'll talk about our matters." Yin Jiao also said to Chu Su and the other two great demons. "That's exactly what I'm thinking." The Spirit Tooth Immortal let out a long cry. He also revealed the form of the six-tusked white elephant and stomped downwards. The three-pronged steel trident was a great demon. Although he had the appearance of a rat, his aura was ferocious and dignified. He looked at the red Inferno Dvajra Buddha Lord coldly, before stabbing towards the 3 giant apes that were surrounded. Yin Zhaoge clasped his palms together, and the blazing radiance around him transformed into shooting stars that scattered in all directions with a horrifying momentum. Although he had acted as a distraction to attract the enemy's attention, he didn't plan on abandoning his pawn. He wanted to kill his way out of the encirclement. The 3 giant apes roared in unison and soared into the sky. Yin Zhaoge allowed the golden body of the great sage, formed by the North Ocean clone, to protect them. Then, he tapped the air with his finger, and the grand commencement earlier heaven chi shot out from his fingertip. The demon monkey opened his mouth and spat out the earlier heaven chi. It split into 3 within the void and transformed into 3 streams of clear air. Even if the 3 golden bodies of the great sage had the Rui golden cudgel, they wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand. However, the great sage equaling heavens wasn't the same. Previously, he had wreaked havoc in the immortal court's heavenly palace with his bare fists. Now that he had the Rui golden cudgel, he could ignore the disparity in numbers. However, just as the demon monkey made his move and spat out the clear air, the great demon that wielded the trident did the same thing. He looked at the sun earth and opened his mouth 3 times. Then he exhaled and blew out. In an instant, a gust of raging wind blew in the surrounding cosmos, enveloping the entire place in a yellow blur. The universe was on the verge of collapsing, and even the void of eternity was trembling. The demon monkey opened his mouth and spat out 3 streams of clear air. All of them were diverted and couldn't land on the other 2 golden bodies of the great sage in time. As if an ancient divine mountain was forcefully uprooted from the ground, the 3 gigantic apes were all blown away. Their bodies spun around, and they couldn't even open their eyes. The Rui golden cudgel faced the void. The Rui golden cudgel didn't move, but the 3 demon monkeys still couldn't stand still. Wherever the yellow winds passed, the stars in the sky would be thrown into chaos. Even the green-furred lion wouldn't be able to swallow people. He was a little resentful. However, he still sneered as he looked at the 3 golden bodies of the great sage. "Are you still so arrogant now? Yellow wind great sage, yellow wind monster," the demon monkey yelled. The demon race great sage didn't reply. He held the trident in his hand and spat out another stream of samadhi divine wind. His wind was not the same as fireworks. If Yin Zhaoge and the others were blinded by the smoke, they could try using the 3 brilliances sacred water to block it. However, this wind could scatter the 3 brilliances sacred water. While the sacred water was strong, its quantity was too little. It couldn't withstand the yellow wind monster's continuous attacks. Even if it could protect one's eyes, the earlier heaven's unity of chi would always be diverted. "Since we're here to look for you, we must have a way to deal with you." The spirit tooth immortal smiled proudly. He touched his injured buttocks and felt enraged. He immediately thrusted his spear forward. The Chiosho immortal Chu Su, the red Inferno Dhamma Buddha, and Yin Jiao surrounded him as well. The yellow wind monster retracted his wind and didn't attack. Instead, he stood at the periphery and suppressed the others. As long as the demon monkey had the intention to reverse the transformation of the 3 clears and reveal the great sage equaling heaven's true body, he would immediately spit out a stream of samadhi divine wind. After interrupting Yin Zhaoge and the others' transformation, the other 5 would once again attack together. Without the divine wind to distract them, the 3 golden bodies of the great sage were still as ferocious as ever. The Rui golden cudgel was still forcing their opponents to dodge. Only they couldn't break out of the encirclement easily. Chapter 1561. Being trapped and unable to break out of the encirclement. To Yin Zhaoge and the others, this was bad news. This was because the golden body of the great sage could not last long in battle. Even if he did not reveal his true body of the great sage, heaven's equal, just brandishing the Rui Jingu Bang would be extremely exhausting. As time passed, even if the yellow wind monster didn't unleash the samadhi divine wind, Yin Zhaoge and the others wouldn't have enough strength to manifest the great sage equaling heaven's true form. However, none of his opponents were easy to deal with. Be it Spirit Tooth Immortal, Chiosho Immortal, or Red Inferno Kitagarbha Buddha. They were all veteran Grand Heavenly Realm experts with powerful ultimate moves. The elite of the Six Paths, Chu Su, was a Buddhist heretic expert who surpassed his master, the treasured sword Buddha Lord. He was no weaker than genuine Grand Heavenly Realm experts like Deity Chiosho and the others. In a 4-on-3 situation, other than having to guard against the Rui Jingu Bang's overwhelming power, they were not at a disadvantage. Yin Jiao was born in the primordial age, but he stagnated in the grand virtual immortal realm. After entering the immortal court, he successfully passed the primordial heavenly tribulation. His talent and strength were not comparable to the heretic Chu Su. However, he had his own methods. He didn't directly clash against Yin Zhaoge and the other's golden body of the great sage. Instead, he cautiously stood at the periphery, took out the soul-absorbing bell, and started shaking it. This soul-assimilating bell was a supreme treasure that he had obtained from the Lord of Guangqing. When the bell rang, it would suck away one's soul and cause one to lose their life unknowingly. It was extremely overbearing. Xue Fei and the other two manifested their golden bodies of the great sage, allowing them to run rampant in the great void and challenge grand heavenly immortals. However, it was not entirely their own strength. Instead, it was the result of combining their bodies with the golden bodies of the great sage. The North Ocean clone, Xue Fei, and Pan Pan felt especially uncomfortable after being shaken by the soul-absorbing bells ringing. They had to divert their attention to stabilize the changes in their souls and the golden body of the great sage. With the Rui golden cudgel in hand, Yin Zhaoge's side was surrounded by the horned head immortal, the red Inferno Dhamma Buddha King, and the other grand heavenly realm experts. However, even with everyone else added together, the pressure that the yellow wind monster brought to Yin Zhaoge and the others was still not as great as the pressure that the yellow wind monster brought to them. This monster's cultivation may not be as strong as Immortal Spirit Tooth and Immortal Chiosho, but the Samadhi Divine Wind was really mysterious and overbearing. It was comparable to the golden light and yellow fog of the old centipede of the Hundred-Eyed Demon Lord. The Hundred-Eyed Demon Lord was in the small saint realm of the demon race. When he unleashed his innate ability, the 100 eyes beneath his ribs, golden radiance flickered and yellow mist covered the sky, not to mention those in the grand virtual realm. Even those who had ascended to the grand heavenly immortal realm could not do anything to him. As a great sage demon, the yellow wind monster was naturally much stronger than the 100-eyed demon monarch, especially his Samadhi Divine Wind. In terms of its profundities, it happened to counter Yin Zhaoge's technique of combining the three golden bodies of the great sage with the help of the one quintessence three clears transformation. It was no wonder that Immortal Chiosho and the other two dared to continue chasing after him after suffering a loss. Here, the Spirit Tooth Immortal used the same trick. He flicked his long nose and once again swept towards the Rui Jingu Bang. Yin Zhaoge's North Ocean clone, who had transformed into a demon monkey, wielded the Rui golden cudgel and suddenly inhaled. Then, the gigantic demon body that seemed to be able to support the heavens, and the divine metal treasure in his hand, that seemed like a pillar that supported the heavens suddenly shrunk together. When the Spirit Tooth Immortal's long nose missed, the shrunken demon monkey lifted the metal rod and smashed it towards the gigantic elephant's nostril. The six-tusked white elephant was so frightened that it hurriedly retracted its long nose. However, while the Rui Jingu Bang was intimidating the Spirit Tooth Immortal, Immortal Chiosho and Chu Su joined hands to attack the second demon monkey that Pan Pan had transformed into. The third demon monkey that Xue Fei had transformed into wanted to help, but suddenly, a rain of fire descended from above. The red Inferno Dhamma Buddha finally opened the treasured pagoda in his hand and tossed it into the air. Then countless crimson flames fell down from the open treasured pagoda. The crimson flames seemed illusory and weren't scorching. They seemed to ignore everything in the outside world and directly reached one's soul. It was the Buddhism's red lotus cleansing fire, which was extremely powerful. The demon monkey that Xue Fei had transformed into shook his body and seemed to have turned illusory as well. Then, the demon monkey leaped and turned from illusory to solid. As his illusory state changed, he jumped out of the treasured pagoda's range and headed towards the other side of the battlefield, attacking the immortal Chiosho and helping Pan Pan. The Red Inferno Dhamma Buddha wasn't anxious even after his first attack failed. He continued his pincer attack. After all, the longer the battle dragged on, the more advantageous it would be for them. Although there were other grand heavenly realm experts around, they couldn't see Feng Yunqing's true appearance. In the end, even the 9 underworld's great devils, who were viewed as public enemies, could take advantage of the chaos and attempt to take advantage of Guangqing. The two sides that had been attacking the group of demons together just a moment ago were now engaged in a second battle. In this battle, Sua Mingzhang fought against the rock of 10,000 cloudy miles, preventing him from escaping. He single-handedly restrained the rock of 10,000 cloudy miles' godly speed, which was almost unparalleled among the grand heavenly realm. He completed what many Buddhas in the great battle of the Demon Buddha could only do by joining forces and forming a formation. After Yin Zhaoge wreaked havoc in the immortal court, the demon race and the blessed lands of the White Lotus resumed their assault on the immortal court. The rock of 10,000 cloudy miles couldn't accomplish anything by himself. He could only retreat from the battlefield and head towards the immortal court together with the other great demons. As for the Western Pure Lands, after Mahamayuri came out of seclusion, they turned around and plundered the world beyond worlds of Taoism. Many Buddhas acted to stop a few Taoist celestial immortals from rushing to help. As a result, after the battle against the 9 underworlds and the demon race, Sua Mingzhang and the others experienced the third battle. The flame dragon that proudly roared across the universe became braver as he fought. After the shadow devil and the rock of 10,000 cloudy miles, he fought against the indestructible Vajra Buddha, who was only inferior to the Gautama Buddha among the blessed lands of Saha's 35 Buddhas. During the Middle Era, the blessed lands of Saha flourished. The Western Heaven's great thunderclap temple had 34 Buddhas, which surrounded the Lord of the World. Together with the Lord of the World, they were known as the 35 Buddhas. The Red Inferno Vajra Buddha resided in the third circle, while the indestructible Vajra Buddha resided in the first circle beside the Gautama Buddha. He was one of the few experts of the orthodox Buddhism. He displayed the true meaning of indestructible Vajra and eternal wisdom. At that time, within the blessed lands of Saha, those who were on par with him were Mahamayuri, the Dipankara ancient Buddha, the Maitreya Buddha, who had yet to become a Buddha, the Great Rock Wisdom King, and a few others. After the Middle Era, the blessed lands of Saha split apart. The indestructible Vajra Buddha, the Red Inferno Vajra Buddha, and the other orthodox Buddhism experts joined the Western Pure Lands. Currently, the Western Pure Lands were aiding the immortal court, while the demon race was aiding the blessed lands of the White Lotus. Both sides fought on the battlefield, and the leaders of the two sides were the indestructible Vajra Buddha and the rock of 10,000 cloudy miles. One of them could shift through space with astonishing speed, while the other was an indestructible Vajra with sturdy defense. The incongruence Divine Mother nodded and turned to look at Yin Zhaoge, cultivating the 3 purities simultaneously. I look forward to your future. Thank you, Divine Mother. Yin Zhaoge smiled. The Tao ancestors have never paid attention to those beneath the grand heavenly realm. The incongruence Divine Mother continued. As such, I won't be keeping this immortal exterminating sword. I'll hand it over to you for safekeeping. Yin Zhaoge and Gao Qingxian nodded. Then the incongruence Divine Mother said, however, there's something strange about this sword. I have to inform you about it first. As he said this, a jade-green luster had already appeared within Yin Zhaoge's left pupil, countless runes surging within. Yin Zhaoge stepped on the void. As he walked, he no longer blindly moved forward. Instead, he used the astral steps and used his immortal aura to lay down numerous spirit patterns. The result of the fusion of the formation patterns was the Yin-Yang 9 Splendor 7 Treasures formation. He threw the jade dagger in his hand into the formation. The green light on the surface of the sword kept flickering, and the black and yellow incantations kept flowing on the sword. Yin Zhaoge used the formation technique, derived from the later earth text together with the origin heavenly scripture. The 9-splendor jade palace. The 7 treasures royal chamber. The time of reporting to the heavens. Dominating Yin and holding the handle of Yang. The Tao of exalted and grand. The virtue is stored in gentleness and chastity. Imitating the vast heavens. The fundamental nurtures the beauty of the earth. The flow of things, giving birth to the benevolence of the mother Tao. The blasphemy of the mountains and rivers. The great sorrow and great desire. The benevolence of the great sage. Imitating the heavens. Imitating the earth queen. Yin Zhaoge recited the earth goddess's words, and his hands kept changing the hand seals. As time passed, the green jade dagger in the formation suddenly shook and broke into 2 pieces with a caw sound. Ha! Seeing this, Yin Zhaoge revealed a joyful expression. Within the Yin-Yang 9-splendor 7 treasures formation, the 7 clusters of nebulas rose, and the 9 pillars of light sunk. Amidst the blurry radiance, the 2 halves of the dagger combined to form a dark yellow sword light. It rushed out of the formation and sped towards the distance. Yin Zhaoge immediately followed. Halfway through, the dark yellow sword light suddenly stopped, and black runes appeared on its surface. The sword light trembled but stopped advancing. Before the earth goddess, this junior, jade clear Yin Zhaoge greets you. Yin Zhaoge stopped, not hurried nor impatient. After being trapped by the black runes, a voice resounded from within the dark yellow sword light. Those were profound and unfathomable syllables. Although the meaning was hard to understand, the tone was gentle and warm. Although Yin Zhaoge felt like he had never heard of this language before, he understood the meaning of the words clearly. With such a huge commotion, everyone should be able to find me. Hearing the somewhat familiar voice, Yin Zhaoge's memories seemed to have returned to before the great calamity, when he was still in the heavenly court's divine palace. His expression remained normal. This junior came to thank the earth goddess for gifting me this sword. Due to my urgent mood, I have been rude. Please forgive me, earth goddess. Chapter 1568. From the 9 Underworlds? Hearing this, Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yunxing were both taken aback. Although he had noticed that this matter was unusual, he did not expect it to be related to the 9 Nether. After a moment of silence, Yin Zhaoge said softly, I thought it was related to the Tishita Palace. When he said this, Feng Yunxing, who was beside him, couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. The Earth Queen possessed the immortal exterminating sword. However, she returned it to where Guangqingzi's corpse was, allowing Yin Zhaoge and the others to search for it. At the same time, it was equivalent to drawing the attention of the demon race, Orthodox Buddhism, Immortal Court, and the blessed lands of the White Lotus. However, during this period, the Hollow Jade Palace reappeared in the world. It was hard not to think that the Lady of Earth wanted to use the immortal vanquishing sword to divert the attention of others, and create an opportunity for herself to enter the Jade Void Palace. Then an old problem arose. How did the Lady of Earth find the Jade Void Palace? There might be more than one answer to this question, including the fact that the Lady of Earth had disappeared for so many years because she had been searching with all her might. Now, she had finally gained something. Or maybe she got the information from somewhere else. But of all the answers, the one with the greatest possibility was still the one from the Tishita Palace. The Jade Void Palace, 8 Visions Palace, and Roaming Jade Palace had disappeared. Their whereabouts might be hidden from everyone. Even the other Tao ancestors might not necessarily know. However, as the shadow of the Grand Pure Lord of Tao and Virtue Patriarch, Taisheng Laojun, would definitely know where the Jade Void Palace was. Therefore, on the way here, Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yunxing discussed this problem. First, they suspected that the Earth Goddess might be hiding in the Tishita Palace all these years. I did come from the Tishita Palace. Hearing Yin Zhaoge's words, the Earth Lady did not feel offended. Her tone was still gentle without any fluctuations. Meanwhile, her reply caused the spirits of the two to rise. However, the doubts in his heart grew. Yin Zhaoge stood quietly amidst the dim yellow world, deep in thought as he instantly thought of many things. The Lady of Earth continued. However, this immortal vanquishing sword does come from the 9 hells. Back then, fellow Guangqing perished. The immortal slaying sword in his hands eventually fell into the hands of the demonic path. A soft sigh sounded. until the immortal slaying sword and the immortal trapping sword appeared one after another. The great freedom heavenly demon personally visited the Tishita palace and brought the immortal slaying sword, wanting to exchange it with the elder supreme elder. Lao Jun did not comment and left the matter to Taoist Wuxian to handle. Why would she place it beside the Lord of Broad Accomplishment's corpse and fake the scene, as if the immortal exterminating sword had always been in the Lord of Broad Accomplishment's hands? Yin Zhaoge didn't ask what she took from the Jade Illusory Palace. Compared to the Earth Lady's gains, Yin Zhaoge was more concerned about whether he would have the chance to enter the Jade Illusory Palace. The opening of the Jade Illusory Palace only lasted for an instant. I also couldn't stay for long, and would be sent out very quickly, the Earth Lady said gently. I don't know when I can enter again. The palace was empty, with only a lone lamp remaining. Luckily, what I was looking for was this lamp. Now that I've obtained it, this trip wasn't in vain. Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yunxing understood what she meant. The Jade Illusory glazed lamp was the lamp that the primordial Heavenly Lord had lit up when he was lecturing in the Jade Illusory Palace in the past. While it was miraculous, the primordial Heavenly Lord had many treasures with him. This lamp couldn't display its miraculous effects, and could only be used for illumination. Although Yin Zhaoge heard that there was nothing in the Jade Illusory Palace, and that he might not have the chance to enter again, he wasn't frustrated. He also didn't doubt whether the Earth Lady was unwilling to tell him the truth. He smiled and cupped his hands towards the spacious dark yellow world. Today, I've been told so many things by you. It's an eye-opener for this Yen, and many doubts in my heart have been resolved. I'm truly grateful. There's only one last question that has been lingering in my heart. I wonder if you can answer it. Yin Zhaoge said slowly. I wonder why you want to impersonate the Earth Lady. The dusky yellow world instantly quietened down. If you didn't intentionally leave behind clues, the incongruence Divine Mother and us wouldn't have discovered anything. Within the space, Yin Zhaoge's voice resounded. If they didn't discover the aura left behind by the Earth Queen's deity on the immortal exterminating sword, Yin Zhaoge and the others would naturally think that the ancient sword had always been with the Lord of Broad Accomplishment's slew. They wouldn't have noticed that the immortal exterminating sword had already been transferred to a few hands. If that was the case, Yin Zhaoge wouldn't have been able to find his way here with the later Earth text and other clues. However, I've read many of the Earth Lady's writings, and I've gained some insights. I can tell that you're not the true deity of the Earth Queen. So, may I ask who you are? The young Taoist priest in front of him was the legendary Yang Jian, Yang Erlang. While most people knew that his Taoist title was True Monarch, the heroic radiant beneficence, clear origin wonderful Tao, illuminating prosperity Erlang Sage True Monarch, or Erlang Sage True Monarch, radiant beneficence benevolent king, clear origin wonderful Tao True Monarch, etc. This number one figure of the Jade Clear's third generation had long ascended to the grand heavenly immortal realm. Having surpassed his predecessors, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was the most outstanding person of the Jade Clear lineage. His strength was exceedingly high. In the entire history of Taoism, or even in the entire 1,000 worlds, he was one of the top experts. During the Middle Era, he had once fought against the great sage equaling heavens. It was one of the few grand heavenly immortal realm pinnacle battles during the Middle Era. It was worth mentioning that, according to Yin Zhaoge's knowledge, the 8-9 Mysteries art was created by Yang Jian himself, which was different from what he remembered in the legends. This Yang Erlang should be considered as the first person of the Jade Clear lineage to create a peerless supreme martial art, which allowed him to become an outstanding figure of the grand heavenly immortal realm. During the ancient investitures of the gods era, Yang Jian relied on the 8-9 Mysteries art, which was the most proficient in the transformation of the fleshly body. His senior apprentice uncle, the Southern Extremity Immortal Old Man, who was later known as the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor, created his own thunder art. However, his strength was inferior to Yang Jian's. However, after the ancient investitures of the gods era, Yang Jian rarely appeared in the world. Although he had a title in the Heavenly Court's divine palace, he rarely stepped into the Heavenly Court. Other than his master, the Jade Cauldron cultivated deity, he rarely interacted with the other Jade Clear lineages of the Kunlun Mountain. After appearing a few times during the Middle Era, this most outstanding successor of the Jade Clear lineage stayed in seclusion most of the time. Very little information about him circulated around. It was only during the great calamity of this era that there were rumors of him making a move. However, after the great calamity, there were no more news about him. Yin Zhaoge and the others had always guessed the whereabouts of this legendary figure of Taoism. They didn't expect to meet him face to face today. Just now, you were saying that there were only a few people capable of such transformation. Yin Zhaoge looked at the young Taoist in front of him. After a moment of silence, he smiled and said, "However, there were only a few of them. In other words, there's more than one. After what happened just now, forgive me for not being able to confirm if you're the true Lord of Clear Origin Miao Dao." The young Taoist wasn't annoyed. He smiled and said, "You're the one who asked me who I am. I revealed my true form to you, yet you don't believe me. Do you want me to show off a few tricks?" Yin Zhaoge smiled and said, "You can't blame me for being too careful. Actually, there's no difference." Yang Jian said, "Even if I prove who I am, what I say doesn't mean that you'll believe it completely, right? It doesn't matter how we talk, it doesn't matter." "That might not be the case." Yin Zhaoge laughed lightly. "You're one of my idols." He wasn't making this up. Instead, he was speaking from the bottom of his heart. Although he couldn't be compared to the great sage equaling heavens, he had a good impression of Yang Jian because of his past impressions of him. "Clay figurine?" Yang Jian shook his head and smiled. "Just like what you've said, I invited you here to meet me. If I wanted to be polite, why would I do this? So, you don't have to be so polite." Yin Zhaoge said, "My grandfather was of the Jade Cauldron Grand Master's lineage. In other words, you're truly a senior of our Taoism." Yang Jian said, "I've heard of your grandfather. He wasn't of my lineage, so you don't have to be so particular about it. You can just call me Taoist. We're all disciples of Taoism, and we both respect the three purities. We can be considered as having our own achievements and abilities. I'm just a step ahead of them." He looked at Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yunxing and sighed emotionally. "Our fellow disciples have many outstanding talents. Our Tao isn't lonely. This is stronger than anything else. Speaking of this, I have something to ask you," Yin Zhaoge asked. "Now that the Earth Queen is here." Yang Jian's gaze dimmed slightly. The Earth Queen had perished during the Great Calamity. Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yunqing's expressions dimmed slightly as well. "Still, why did you disguise yourself as the Earth Queen?" After a while, Yin Zhaoge asked. Yang Jian said, "Because I discovered a secret in the past. If I reveal myself now, those related to it would be alerted. If I don't reveal myself, they would think that I'm dead. The secret wouldn't be revealed, and they would act on their own." Chapter 1570. Hearing Yang Jian's words, Yin Zhaoge recalled the scene of the universe appearing earlier. The dark yellow light spread out to the periphery. It was still there, as if it was hidden in the depths of the universe. In fact, it was Yang Jian who had manifested his true body from the periphery. It is no wonder that despite having manifested your true form, Taoist brother, you still have to make such arrangements, continuing to conceal your identity, Yin Zhaoge realized. It is just that I wonder what secret it is that you have to be so careful about it. Yang Jian smiled. "Speaking of which, this matter has something to do with you, my young friend." Yin Zhaoge raised his brows. "Related to me?" "That's right," Yang Jian said. "It should be said that it has more to do with you guys. To me, it's just incidental." Yin Zhaoge smacked his lips. "Taoist brother, has anyone told you before that your habit of keeping people in suspense isn't very good?" Yang Jian sighed and said, "Of course there were, but most of them are gone now." Hearing his words, Yin Zhaoge could not help but sigh. "Taoist brother, ah." Yang Jian also sighed. After shaking his head, he said with a serious expression, "This matter is indeed closely related to what you are planning right now. What we're doing now." Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yunqing's gaze turned cold. "Immortal exterminating four swords?" Yang Jian nodded. "That's right. Now that you have the celestial slaying sword, celestial slaying sword, and celestial trapping sword. You only lack the last one, the celestial slashing sword that was once in the possession of senior Uncle Daohang. However, during the time of the Great Calamity that year, senior apprentice Uncle Daoist Hang had unfortunately perished, guarding our Taoism. This immortal-ending ancient sword also changed owners. Yang Jian said in a deep voice. If there are no new changes, the new owner of the immortal extinguishing sword is none other than the heretic boundless heavenly lord. Yan Zhaoge's pupils dilated slightly. The immortal ending sword is in the hands of the immeasurable heavenly lord. Not bad. Yang Jian nodded slowly. Uncle Master Daoxing died at the hands of the immeasurable heavenly lord back then. I witnessed it with my own eyes and could not save him in time. After that, I was also chased by the immeasurable heavenly lord. After escaping with serious injuries, I was received by the Grand Pure One Xuandu Uncle Master, and faked traces of my death. Then, I recuperated in the Tishita Palace. The shocked look on Yin Zhaoge's face faded as he nodded lightly. The gap between the Dao Ancestor realm and those below the Dao realm should be the greatest among all realms. Saying that everyone below the Dao realm was an ant might be a little too much. However, there had never been a grand heavenly immortal who could fight a Dao Ancestor head-on. Even someone as powerful as the Lord of Plentiful Treasure, who cultivated the Chaos Extinguishing Origin Sutra, had fallen to the Great Freedom Heavenly Demon. However, an extremely small number of top-rate Golden Immortal Realm experts weren't completely powerless against the Dao Ancestor, and the Dao Ancestor wasn't completely confident in killing them. Unless, of course, there was an opponent of a similar cultivation level to restrain this great heavenly immortal. Just like back then when the great sage, Heaven's Equal, fought Yang Jian and Yang Erlang, he was knocked to the ground by the Grand Supreme Elder's Diamond Chakram. When the great sage, Heaven's Equal, fought the Jade Emperor, he was suppressed by the Gautama Buddha's palm. If Mahamayuri had insisted on fighting Taoist Kundi head-on back then, it would be a different story. His lesson would also serve as a warning to countless future generations. Yang Jian, Yang Erlang's strength might be inferior to the great sage equaling heavens, and the Jade Emperor Great Heavenly Lord. However, he was still one of the few top-notch experts beneath the Dao realm. He was especially proficient in the variations of his divine arts. It wasn't surprising that the immeasurable Heavenly Lord wasn't able to take him down during the chaotic times of the Great Calamity. Other than Daoist brother in the Tishita Palace, no one else knows that the Earth Goddess has perished? Asked Yin Zhaoge. Yang Jian nodded. That's right. I killed the person who killed Daoist Earth. I intended to bury her corpse somewhere else. However, she met with the immeasurable Heavenly Lord's tribulation. After I followed senior apprentice Uncle Xian, due to the Tishita Palace, I buried Daoist Earth's corpse in the Tishita Palace as well. Yin Zhaoge nodded. If that's the case, I don't have to worry about others finding out that the Earth Goddess is an impersonation of yours. He raised his head slightly and lightly rubbed his temples. The immortal ending sword is actually in the immeasurable Heavenly Lord's hands. This is going to be troublesome. Feng Yunqing frowned. After the Great Calamity, the immortal ending sword had never been used by any one of the Immortal Court heretics. If it's still in the Immortal Court, it would be under the immeasurable Heavenly Lord's personal protection. He is waiting for us sword seekers to deliver ourselves to him. Even if we don't go, he won't suffer any losses. Yin Zhaoge muttered to himself. No wonder I felt weird earlier. So this is the reason. He looked towards Feng Yunqing. Don't you think that the demon race and the blessed lands of the White Lotus are paying more attention to the immortal exterminating sword than the Immortal Court and the Western Pure Lands? The Immortal Court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus are currently fighting against each other. Without Yin Jiao and Chu Su, the blessed lands of the White Lotus would be at a greater disadvantage. Feng Yunqing came to a realization, not to mention the demon race. At least 3 demon race great sages were dispatched, while the Western Pure Lands only had a single Buddha, the Red Inferno Dhamma Buddha. In this battle, they have the upper hand. After all, they already possess the immortal ending sword. The sound of Yin Zhaoge grinding his teeth came from his mouth. This time, it's just a symbolic gesture. It's merely a disguise to prevent us from getting suspicious. It'd be best if we could obtain the immortal exterminating sword. However, it's fine even if we don't. The Immortal Court and the Western Pure Lands are just waiting for us to find the fourth immortal extinguishing sword and walk right into their trap. At that time, apart from us, we might even be able to help them gather the four immortal extinguishing swords and the formation diagram. He cupped his hands towards Yang Jian. Thank you, Taoist brother. Yang Jian smiled. We're all Taoism's disciples. You don't have to be so courteous. However, humans die in pursuit of wealth, and birds die in pursuit of food. Yen Zhaoge smiled bitterly. The difference between 3 swords and 4 swords is too huge. Although the complete immortal exterminating formation can't do anything to a Tao ancestor, it can't be destroyed unless all 4 Tao ancestors are present. An incomplete immortal exterminating formation can be destroyed by the immeasurable Heavenly Lord himself. Yen Zhaoge slapped his forehead. Actually, it's not something unexpected. It's just that things were too smooth previously, causing us to have such thoughts. The immortal exterminating 4 swords were the most valuable treasures when they were fused together. How could others not covet them? Although the immortal slaughtering sword's whereabouts were already unknown due to the red essence stone and the Lord of Plentiful Treasure's deaths during the Middle Era, the other 3 swords would still garner a lot of attention. Who knew when the immortal slaughtering sword would reappear in the world? Still, it'd be best if they could obtain all of them. However, if they couldn't obtain all of them, they'd have to prevent others from succeeding. As long as they obtained one, it would be equivalent to destroying the immortal exterminating formation. If they couldn't obtain it, it wouldn't become a sharp weapon in the hands of their enemies, threatening them. It might be a coincidence that the Jade Cauldron cultivated deity managed to preserve the immortal trapping sword before his death. The immortal exterminating sword fell into the 9 underworlds, while the immortal ending sword fell into the Immortal Court. Since Taoist brother kept this a secret and didn't expose the immeasurable Heavenly Lord's intentions, could it be that you're planning to beat him at his own game? Yen Zhaoge's gaze suddenly flickered, and he looked towards Yang Jian. Chapter 1571. It was one thing to snatch something from someone else's hands, but it was another thing to pull a tooth out of a tiger's mouth from a Tao ancestor. This meant that he was trying to provoke a Tao realm expert. To the current orthodox Taoism, it was undoubtedly extremely risky to do so when the Grand Supreme Elder's attitude was unclear. Without a reliable Tao realm expert to hold the line, the orthodox Taoism was currently helpless. This was the reason why Yen Zhaoge and the others valued the immortal exterminating 4 swords and the immortal exterminating formation so highly. In fact, the immortal vanquishing array could not fight a Tao ancestor head-on. It could not effectively kill him. It was not difficult for a Tao ancestor to enter or exit the array. However, even a single Tao ancestor would not be able to break the complete immortal extermination formation. Then, under certain circumstances, it would become a weight that could influence the overall situation. After all, there was no Tao ancestor who was completely alone in the sense of the word. Perhaps the Elder Lord was one of them. To Yen Zhaoge and the other Taoism disciples, this was rather ironic. This was the value and significance of the immortal execution formation. The reappearance of the complete immortal extermination formation would completely change the situation of the orthodox Taoism. But here was the problem. They were searching for the immortal slaying 4 swords in order to fight against the Tao realm almighty beings. But one of the ancient swords was in the hands of the immeasurable Heavenly Lord, a heretic Tao ancestor, who was a mortal enemy of the orthodox Taoism. Thus, this seemed to have become a dead knot. If Yen Zhaoge were to think of a solution, other than the Elder Lord, he would have to rely on the demon race and the blessed lands of the White Lotus. The immeasurable Heavenly Lord and the Immortal Court had concealed the immortal ending sword in secret, intending to catch Yen Zhaoge and the others off guard, luring them into a trap. Coincidentally, Yen Zhaoge and the others already possessed the other 3 swords, as well as the complete immortal exterminating formation diagram. Once the immeasurable Heavenly Lord succeeded, the complete immortal extermination array would fall into the hands of the Immortal Court. This would undoubtedly break the balance between them and the blessed lands of the White Lotus. Neither the future Buddha nor the Eastern monarch Tai would be happy to see this. Even if Yin Zhaoge had just slaughtered the spirit tooth immortal and devoured an elephant, the demon race and the blessed lands of the White Lotus wouldn't allow the immeasurable heavenly lord's plan to succeed. Of course, they also wanted to capture Yin Zhaoge and the others in one fell swoop, allowing the immortal extermination formation to fall under their control. In the worst-case scenario, he would tear down the immortal extermination array again. If he couldn't obtain it, he wouldn't give the immeasurable heavenly lord a chance either. Yin Zhaoge even suspected that the Western Pure Lands might have other thoughts as well. Although the Western Pure Lands and the Immortal Court both had Tao Realm bigwigs overseeing them, there was no doubt that the Western Pure Lands was stronger when both sides joined forces. However, if the Celestial Court obtained the Celestial Extermination Formation, the position of host and guest could be reversed. The same logic applied to the Astro Mountain Starry Seas and the blessed lands of the White Lotus. This was a delicate game. However, Yin Zhaoge believed that with the capabilities of the Tao ancestors, they definitely wouldn't do something as stupid as having internal strife before splitting the spoils. They would first ensure that the immortal extermination formation entered the hands of their alliance. Only then would there be the problem of splitting the spoils. Therefore, in general, it was not that there was no other way. However, if the Grand Supreme Elder did not make a move, then no matter how they planned, it would be like asking a tiger for its skin. Their chances of winning were not high. At the end of the day, forging iron still required one's own strength. Therefore, Yin Zhaoge was now very interested in Yang Jian's method. Yang Ke had faked his death so that the immeasurable heavenly lord would think that the news of him obtaining the immortal ending sword had not been leaked. With that, he would be able to set up a trap for Yin Zhaoge and the others to fall into it themselves. It was obvious that he was planning to play along with the immeasurable heavenly lord. Of course, Yin Zhaoge could also choose to be conservative. After receiving Yang Jian's warning, he would not think about the immortal ending sword anymore. With that, he wouldn't be plotted against by the immeasurable heavenly lord. However, if there was a way to play along with the immeasurable heavenly lord, Yin Zhaoge would definitely be happy. I do have an idea. Yang Jian didn't keep them in suspense this time. Instead, he directly said, "It depends on the treasured lamp that I obtained from the Jade Illusory Palace." Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yunxing were both interested. While the Jade Illusory Glazed Lamp is an extraordinary treasure, it shouldn't be able to deal with the might of the Tao realm, right? Yang Jian said, "Naturally, it wouldn't be possible with just this lamp alone. However, this might be a fortuitous encounter that could give us a chance. I can't say for sure whether it would succeed or not. I can only say that we'll try our best. I'm not keeping you in suspense this time. It's just that I still haven't figured out some parts of the plan. I'll have to act according to the situation." At this point, Yang Jian looked at the two. "If there's really a chance to succeed, I'll naturally inform you. If it doesn't, I'm afraid that I'll have to plan for the immortal ending sword slowly. Don't be too hasty and fall into the immeasurable heavenly lord's trap. Fellow Taoist, you're a bigwig. Us husband and wife naturally trust you." Yin Zhaoge cupped his hands. "Since we received your warning and learned that the immortal ending sword is in the hands of the heretics, and the immeasurable heavenly lord harbors ill intentions, we'll naturally be cautious and await your good news." He paused for a moment and asked, "There's one more thing that I'd like to ask you." Yang Jian said, "Go ahead." There's always a rumor that the immeasurable heavenly lord is a manifestation of one of our Taoism's heavenly lord bigwigs advancing further and ascending to the Tao realm. Yin Zhaoge asked, "Which one is it? Do you have any clues, Taoist?" Yang Jian said slowly, "The Jade Sovereign, fellow Taoist Purple Micro, Taoist Jin Yuanzi, and the Jade Pool's Western Queen Mother are among these four. There should have been another Tai Nirvana Heavenly Lord. Still, I heard that he had already perished a few years ago. Thus he was naturally excluded." Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yunxing nodded slowly upon hearing this. Yang Jian's words were actually a list of the peak bigwigs of Taoism, who had yet to appear during the Great Calamity that year and thereafter. Actually, there was something that had to be mentioned back then. Yang Jian now continued, When it happened, I wasn't in the heavenly court's divine palace. Instead, I was in my cave manor at the mouth of the river. Before that, a letter had originally been sent to my manor. Still, the letter didn't mention anything, only inviting me to the heavenly court. Because I was in seclusion, I didn't see the letter immediately. Yang Jian had a look of reminiscence on his face. By the time I emerged from seclusion, due to the great calamity, the heavenly court's divine palace had already collapsed. Such a thing actually happened? Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yinxing were both taken aback. I wonder who invited you to the heavenly court, Yang Jian said. It was fellow Taoist Purple Micro. The heaven-reigning Purple Micro Polaris Grand Sovereign Emperor, the head of the 4 imperials of Taoism, and the number 2 figure of the heavenly court's divine palace in name. Even if the Tai Nirvana heavenly lord who frequently appeared and disappeared was included, the Purple Micro Emperor was unquestionably one of the top 3 bigwigs of the heavenly court's divine palace. Does this mean that the possibility of the Purple Micro Emperor not being the immeasurable heavenly lord is rather small? Feng Yinxing asked softly. Yang Jian said, it's hard to say for sure. I do have some guesses. Still, I don't know why fellow Taoist Purple Micro invited me. He pondered for a moment before saying, perhaps the Tai Nirvana heavenly lord knows what's going on. Chapter 1572. Yin Zhaoge closed his eyes and pondered for a while. Then, he opened his eyes and looked at Yang Jian, asking, do you know if the great Taoist Xuandu received the Purple Tenuity Emperor's letter? Or someone else's letter? There was a letter. Yang Jian revealed a look of admiration and nodded. Senior apprentice Uncle Xuandu asked the Elder Lord about it. The Elder Lord didn't say anything, so Senior apprentice Uncle Xuandu handled it himself. In the end, Senior apprentice Uncle Xuandu went to the heavenly court's divine palace. However, he was obstructed by the Dipankara ancient Buddha. Yin Zhaoge raised his head slightly. After a while, a bitter smile appeared on his face. Listening to what you said, it's really a blow to my spirit. The Elder Lord's thoughts couldn't be guessed. It was too uncertain to rely on him. It's also hard to figure out the Elder Lord's thoughts outside of Taoism. Yang Jian smiled. Otherwise he wouldn't have made a move during the Middle Era. As the saying goes, one's Tao heart is hard to fathom. There's nothing he wouldn't do. It's normal for him to change his mind after making a decision. It's absurd to use normal people's morals and thinking habits to demand such an existence. Yang Jian's smile didn't diminish. He sighed. To put it boldly, it's not impossible for the Elder Lord to suddenly make a move and exterminate the entire 3 clear lineage. There's no reason for it. Perhaps he had such thoughts at that time and did it. There's no reason to talk about it. The reason in our eyes is useless to the Elder Lord. If we're still restricted by the reason of this world, how can we call it transcendence? Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yinxing remained silent. What Yang Jian said just now was naturally an extreme assumption. However, it wasn't impossible. From a certain perspective, this assumption was the same as the Elder Lord fighting against the other Tao ancestors in order to protect the Taoism lineage. It's not that our reason is useless. Yin Zhaoge added. It might be useless, but it might also be useful. It was up to the Elder Lord to decide whether to follow the world's logic or not. Perhaps in his eyes, all living beings in this world, no matter if they were Orthodox Taoism, Immortal Court heretics, Buddhism, demon race, or even 9 underworld's great devils, were all equal without any difference. It was also possible that in the next moment, he would be extremely protective and actively participate in the game with the other Tao ancestors for the sake of caring for the direct descendants of the Tao sect. He would do anything. It was even possible for him to help the Celestial Court suppress the Orthodox Taoism lineage. Of course, most of the time, the Grand Supreme Elder's reaction to the world was indifferent. However, what made everyone helpless was that they could not guess what the Grand Supreme Elder was thinking. There was no pattern to it. They could only be sure when he really made a move. When a Tao realm powerhouse made a move, it was likely that there was a deeper meaning behind it. At that time, it was difficult to see through his true thoughts. This was the reason why the other forces did not exterminate the Orthodox Taoism. Perhaps when others attacked, The Grand Supreme Elder did not care. However, many years later, there was no telling when the Grand Supreme Elder would suddenly turn hostile without warning and seek revenge. In terms of strength, the Elder Supreme Lord was equivalent to the Grand Pure Lord of Tao and Virtue before he transcended. It was enough to make other Tao ancestors fear him. There were only a few Tao ancestors in total. In the battle between them, the sudden addition of the Grand Supreme Elder was enough to affect the balance of the battle. What was even more terrifying was that no one could guarantee if the Grand Supreme Elder represented the will of the three clear Grand Masters that had already transcended. The three clear Grand Masters that had already transcended were like the Grand Supreme Elder. Hard to fathom. Perhaps the three clear Grand Masters wouldn't care if the Grand Supreme Elder's projection perished. However, it might provoke the three clear Grand Masters to descend upon the world once again. That was something that no one would be happy to see. After all, even if the Tathagata Buddha and Niwa sovereign, who had also transcended, returned, the result would still be 2 against 3. Unfortunately, the awkward thing was that the orthodox Taoism could not guarantee that they would benefit from this. They might even suffer from a calamity. This is a pain in the ass. Yen Zhaoge held his forehead and smiled bitterly. However, think optimistically. The immeasurable heavenly Lord's heart must not be at peace for the past few years. In the past, he took a risk and succeeded. However, who knew when the Grand Supreme Elder would suddenly look for revenge? Of course, there might also be surprises. For example, the Grand Supreme Elder might help the immortal court. However, this would either lead to great sorrow or great joy. However, the sorrow and joy weren't decided by him. Moreover, he didn't know when it would happen, and whether it would happen for sure. Not many people would like it. At the very least, Yen Zhaoge didn't like it. This is the current situation in front of us. Yang Jian smiled. There's no use in being dissatisfied or complaining. The key is to guide the situation to develop in a direction that's beneficial to us. He said in a self-mocking manner, I've been recuperating in the Tishita Palace for the past few years. Even if the Grand Supreme Elder didn't care about me, I've still benefited from it. That's natural. Yen Zhaoge also smiled. The so-called if is only an if for now. In reality, the reason why our orthodox Taoism still exists and shows signs of revival is more or less related to the Grand Supreme Elder. The smile on his face slowly disappeared. Only time waits for no man. Regarding the immortal ending ancient sword, don't be impatient. Yang Jian stood up. I'll give you an answer later. Then he passed a talisman to Yen Zhaoge. The treasure written on the talisman belonged to the Earth Queen. Yen Zhaoge received the talisman and kept it carefully. Then he cupped his hands towards Yang Jian. Thank you, Taoist brother. It's already been quite long. Let's end our conversation here. Let's meet again. Yang Jian nodded towards Yen Zhaoge and Feng Yunsheng. His figure gradually disappeared, and the brilliant starry river in front of him started collapsing. The dim yellow radiance reappeared from afar, as if the boundaries of the cosmos had shrunk, replacing the starry river and the cosmos, manifesting a world. The concept of the Earth Queen's earthly deity reappeared, and that warm and heavy feeling enveloped Yen Zhaoge and Feng Yunsheng once again. See you again. The Earth Queen's voice resounded and went far away. The dim yellow world disintegrated. Yen Zhaoge and Feng Yunsheng returned to the real boundless void's outskirts. Yang Jian transformed into the Earth Queen's earthly deity and traversed the void. After a long and arduous journey, he once again merged with a star and waited quietly. After a long time, an old man suddenly appeared within the star. He wore a fishtail crown and a red robe. His appearance was strange, and he had a long beard. In front of the old man, a graceful, gentle, and dignified woman appeared. She seemed like the Mother Earth. I'm happy to see you, Taoist Hutu. The red-robed old man stroked his beard and smiled. The woman said mildly, It's all thanks to Taoist Xuandu's help, allowing me to recuperate in the Tishita Palace. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to live until now to see you again. Chapter 1573. Upon hearing the woman's words, the red-robed old man smiled. Fellow Taoist Hutu is blessed. You will definitely be able to turn misfortune into fortune. Luya Dao. If you and the others from the Astro Mountain Star Ocean hadn't come out of seclusion back then, perhaps more of us could have turned calamities into blessings. The woman in luxurious clothes said coldly. The red-robed elder in front of her was a legendary figure whose name had shaken multiple epochs, Lord Wuxia. He was one of the most ancient figures in this world, one who had been born before the heavens and had a deep foundation. During the Archaic era, he had already become famous. He had transformed into the great sun golden crow and illuminated the world. Empress Enviwa created all living creatures, and the gold crows were modeled after her image and the intent realm of her magic. During the ancient epoch, he had taken the form of a Taoist, which was his current appearance. He had participated in the God-sealing Great War, gaining a great reputation. During the Middle Era, Taoist Wuxia re-entered the central blessed lands of Saha and transformed into Vairocana. He was one of the few Buddhist bigwigs in the central blessed lands of Saha. After the Middle Era, the Maitreya Buddha changed the central blessed lands of Saha into the blessed lands of the White Lotus and ascended to the Tao ancestors' position, causing the Buddhas of the central blessed lands of Saha to leave. Mahavairocana was one of them. However, he didn't join the Western Pure Lands. Instead, he left Buddhism and transformed into Lord Wuxia to enter the Astro Mountain Starry Sea. Apart from the chaos of the universe during the Great Calamity, when the demons of the Astro Mountain Starry Seas made a brief appearance, Lord Wuxia and the demon race had been living in seclusion most of the time in this era. In recent years, the demon race had finally come out of seclusion and officially stepped into the world again. The Eastern monarch Tai rarely interfered with worldly affairs. Currently, most of the matters in the Astro Mountain Star Sea were handled by Taoist Lord Wuxia. He was the number 2 figure in the Astro Mountain Star Sea, and the current second-in-command of the demon race. Generally speaking, he rarely participated in the battle. Most of the time, he left it to the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles, Yellow Wind Devil, and other great beasts to command the battlefield. It was rare for Lord Wuxia to leave the Grand Essence Heaven and the Astro Mountain Starry Seas. However, the woman in luxurious clothes, who had always been gentle and generous, did not bother to speak to this old powerful figure who had crossed over the 3 schools of demons, Taoism and Buddhism. Lord Wuxia didn't mind the woman's cold words, and he continued to smile calmly. Many things have their own destiny, be it me or the other Taoists. We're just following the will of the heavens. Fellow Hutu, it's a cause for celebration. It's only natural for you and the other Tao sects to seek revenge on us. However, we naturally won't wait for death without doing anything. Let's just fight again. Just as I've just received news, Taoist Spirit Tooth was killed by a Taoist of the Tao sect not long ago. He said with a smile. Of course, before the karma is settled, it won't affect us from sowing other good karma and good karma, right? The well-dressed woman remained silent. Taoist Wuxia said. Previously, the Jade Void Palace reappeared and quickly disappeared. I wonder if it was your doing, fellow Taoist Hutu? If there's anyone in this world who can definitely find the Hollow Jade Palace, it has to be the Elder Lord. Since you came out of the Tishita Palace, you must have received the Elder Lord's guidance? That's right, the well-dressed woman said calmly. She glanced at Taoist Wuxia. I know what you're thinking about, Taoist Lord. The Jade Void glazed lamp is indeed in the Hollow Jade Palace. I brought it out and sent it back to the Tishita Palace. Taoist Wuxia sighed. I'm sorry, fellow Taoist Hutu. He looked at the well-dressed woman. I wonder if fellow Taoist Hutu can bring out the Jade Void glazed lamp and let me take a look. Sure. The well-dressed woman did not avoid his gaze. She looked him in the eye and said straightforwardly, But I need you to give me something in exchange. Taoist Wuxia asked. What do you want, fellow Taoist Hutu? I want a damaged zither. Are you willing to exchange it, Taoist Lord? The well-dressed woman said calmly. Taoist Wuxia's gaze suddenly froze. The smile on his face faded, and he remained silent. If you feel that it's too much, you can forget about it. The well-dressed woman said. You don't have to borrow the Jade Void glazed lamp. However, this is the simplest and safest path, isn't it? Keeping the zither doesn't guarantee that the other paths will work. Taoist Wuxia stared at the well-dressed woman for a long time. Suddenly he asked, "Fellow Taoist Hutu, or the other Taoists of the Taoism lineage, do you know the whereabouts of the last sword of the 4 immortal exterminating swords?" "That's right." The well-dressed woman did not hide anything and answered honestly. Taoist Luya's expression relaxed. He did not continue asking about the whereabouts of the immortal extinguishing ancient sword, and how she knew about it. He nodded slowly. "As long as I can obtain what I want from the jade void glazed lamp, the zither will be yours, fellow Taoist Hutu." "That's great." The well-dressed woman nodded calmly, and turned to leave. In a Buddhist land in the western Pure Lands, Yin Jiao, who was previously severely injured, appeared with the Red Inferno Dhamma Buddha Lord, who was even more severely injured than him. Venerable White Xiong quickly led them into the temple to meet the Dipankara ancient Buddha. The Dipankara ancient Buddha extended his hand and tapped lightly. Within the illumination of the glazed ancient lamp, the perfected Buddha light spread out and enveloped the Red Inferno Dhamma Buddha Lord within it. The severely injured Red Inferno Dhamma Buddha Lord sat cross-legged with his palms together. Although his aura was still weak, he was slowly getting out of his predicament. He would not die from the injuries caused by the great sage, heaven's equal. Then, the Dipankara ancient Buddha called Venerable White Xiong to bring over a golden alms bowl filled with medicinal pills, and passed it to Yin Jiao. After thanking the Dipankara ancient Buddha, Yin Jiao swallowed the medicinal pills and sat down to meditate. As he recuperated from his injuries, he recounted everything that happened. "If that's the case, it seems like this karma has to be settled with the last sword." The Dipankara ancient Buddha smiled and said, "Return to the immortal court to recuperate. Send my regards to the immeasurable Tao ancestor." Yin Jiao left the Buddhist land. "Master, is it okay for the Jade Void Palace to reappear?" Venerable White Xiong asked after sending Yin Jiao off. The Dipankara ancient Buddha closed his eyes and pondered. The primordial Lord of Heaven has transcended, and the Jade Void Palace has gone into hiding. There shouldn't be any treasures left inside. What do they want from the Jade Void Palace? After Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yinxing bid farewell to Yang Jian, they returned to the awakened sky cosmos. On the way, Yin Zhaoge frowned slightly and fell into deep thought. Regardless of whether his conversation with Yang Jian was true or not, at the very least, he managed to obtain more information. Combining everything he knew, Yin Zhaoge felt a clearer picture unfolding in front of his eyes. Only he couldn't be sure if it was the truth. "I followed your guidance and searched for the traces left behind by the Taoist Heavenly Lord's cave manor. Indeed, I managed to obtain some new information." Feng Yinsheng, who was hidden in his right eye, said, "Unfortunately, the matters of the world are unpredictable. The Taoist Heavenly Lord had perished in the past, and the immortal ending sword was in the immeasurable Heavenly Lord's hands." Chapter 1574. While Yin Zhaoge and the others searched for the immortal extermination sword, Feng Yinsheng followed his instructions and searched for the traces left behind by the Lord of the Taoist Wei's cave manor. She hoped to obtain more clues, so that they could locate the immortal ending sword in the future. After Feng Yinsheng was done, she rushed to the agreed location and met up with Yin Zhaoge and the others. Finally, she suddenly made a move and killed Yin Jiao, the Yellow Wind Devil, and the others, helping Yin Zhaoge and the others to break out of the encirclement and turn the tables around. On the other side, the incongruence Divine Mother had also successfully obtained the immortal extermination sword. Everything went smoothly, and everyone was satisfied. However, the new information obtained from Yang Jian alerted Yin Zhaoge and the others. Although we can't be absolutely sure that Yang Erlang's information is true, we have to prepare for the worst. Yin Zhaoge lightly rubbed his temples and said, "If we're not careful, we might be able to turn the tables around." Although they had the 3 swords in hand, the difficulty of plucking a Tao ancestor's teeth from the tiger's mouth wasn't small at all. If they were careless, they might just end up as food. Previously, they had painstakingly planned for such a long time. Finally, they could see the light at the end of the tunnel. If they hesitated for the sake of stability, they wouldn't be able to change their current situation. Their originally good momentum of rapid development might stop at any time, or even reverse. We must obtain the immortal ending sword. However, we have to think about how to obtain it. Yan Zhaoge said. If the news doesn't leak out, the heretics wouldn't know that we've already discovered the truth. They wouldn't keep it a secret either. They would definitely covet the entire immortal extermination formation, and even want to capture us all. Under such circumstances, things would naturally fall on the next time Yan Zhaoge and the others searched for the sword. The immeasurable heavenly lord, the immortal court, and even the western Pure Lands might have secretly set up a trap, using the immortal ending sword as bait to bait Yan Zhaoge and the others. However, if they want to bait us and walk into their trap unknowingly, they would have to take out some money. Otherwise, even if we don't know about it, we wouldn't fall for it. Yan Zhaoge let out a light sigh. The immeasurable heavenly lord wouldn't be holding on to the immortal ending ancient sword. Otherwise it would be very easy for you, Yinsheng, Senior Su'a, the Incongruence Divine Mother, and the other Taoism heavenly immortals to notice it. If he wants to fish, he has to throw out this bait. There's a chance that we'll bite the bait. The danger lies in how we'll unhook the hook, and how we'll escape from the layers of nets. Feng Yunxing understood. After all, he is a Dao realm expert and he is nearby. If he attacks, he won't give us time to refine the celestial slashing ancient sword and set up the celestial slaying formation. At that time, we won't be able to block the might of the Dao ancestor, and we will be captured. Yan Zhaoge curled his lips. Danger, danger. Fortune is always accompanied by danger. Let's see what methods Yang Erlang has. Otherwise, the danger this time would probably be even greater. He said that he wanted to exchange for an opportunity with the help of the jade virtual glazed lamp. But where did he start? Feng Yunxing raised her eyebrows slightly. Could it be that he's looking for the Dipankara ancient Buddha? During the ancient era, there were rumors of 3 lamb. They were related to the primordial heavenly lord, the lord of Tao and virtue, as well as the Dipankara ancient Buddha, who had entered the Tao and transformed into the Dipankara Taoist. Yan Zhaoge pondered. That's possible. However, that's very ancient. If there's really a trick to it, I feel like the Dipankara ancient Buddha had already planned it during the ancient era. At that time, he had entered Taoism and transformed into the Dipankara Taoist. His relationship with Taoism was rather close, and it was convenient for him to satisfy his needs. Yan Zhaoge even suspected that the reason why he had joined Taoism in the past was because of this place. The related matters had already happened a long time ago. Yan Zhaoge felt that it shouldn't have been delayed until now. The opportunity that Yang Jian mentioned might not be related to the Dipankara ancient Buddha. In comparison, he recalled some records in the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's martial repository. In this era, before the Great Calamity, the Jade Clear Taoism's experts had subdued devils. After sending the devil of fire of that era to perish, they had coincidentally obtained a bit of the fire seed devil's spirit. At that time, in order to further understand the matter of vanquishing devils, the fire seed devil's spirit was preserved. However, it wasn't easy to preserve it. The Jade Clear Taoism's martial art practitioners could only think of the Jade Illusory Palace's Jade Illusory Glazed Lamp and the 8 Scenic Palace's 8 Scenic Palace Lantern. After visiting the Elder Lord at the Tishira Palace, the Elder Lord directed them to the Jade Clear Lineage's Jade Illusory Palace. Since then, the Fire Seed Devil's spirit had been preserved within the Jade Illusory Glazed Lamp. Compared to the ancient relationship between the Jade Illusory Glazed Lamp and the Dipankara ancient Buddha, the era of this matter was much closer. Yan Zhaoge's intuition told him that what Yang Jian said was related to this Fire Seed Devil's spirit. Only, Yan Zhaoge had a few guesses about who Yang Jian was using this thing to communicate with. However, he couldn't be sure. If he's talking to the 9 underworlds, what did the 9 underworlds trade the immortal extermination sword for? Yan Zhaoge pondered as he sped through the boundless void. Oh right, everyone congratulated you upon meeting you, but I haven't congratulated you yet. While walking, Yan Zhaoge said, Congratulations on ascending to the grand heavenly immortal realm. You're now undying and coexisting with the world. Feng Yunsheng, who was in his right eye, sighed and said, I've finally taken this step. Looking back, I still feel like I'm walking on thin ice. Yin Zhaoge also sighed softly. This time, you'll have to take the risk. It's fine, Feng Yunxing said gently. Since I've walked on this path, I've reached a height that many others might not even be able to reach in thousands, or even tens of thousands of years. It's only natural for me to take on more risks. Besides, the outcome is good. She smiled. I feel that it's good to be able to accompany you like this, and not worry about whether I'll be a burden to you. No matter how big the risk is, it's fine. Yin Zhaoge smiled as well, but he didn't reply. The biggest and most dangerous trial had yet to arrive. Oh right. I obtained a decent treasure this time, said Feng Yunxing with a smile. An illusory figure appeared in Yin Zhaoge's right eye. It was a small bell that resembled a bell. Soul-absorbing bell. Yin Zhaoge nodded. Indeed, it's a powerful treasure for slaughter. It can kill most of those below the grand heavenly immortal realm. If Senior Gao didn't possess the immortal trapping sword, he might not have been able to deal with this treasure. This was all thanks to Yin Jiao's jade clear lineage cultivation, being crippled by the Lord of Broad Accomplishment. Due to that, he could only cultivate unorthodox arts, and couldn't unleash the soul-absorbing bell's full might. This treasure can still be used against grand heavenly immortals, Feng Yunxing said. It can also be used as one of our sect's greatest treasures. If someone were to bring it along, they could attack or defend. After pondering for a while, Yin Zhaoge said, precisely because it's useful against grand heavenly immortals, the most suitable owner is still you. Chapter 1575. The soul-absorbing bell could be considered as Feng Yunxing's spoils of war. Moreover, Yin Zhaoge wasn't trying to take care of his wife. Instead, he was merely stating the facts. As such, Feng Yunxing didn't hesitate. After pondering for a while, she smiled and said, all right. As the two chatted, they returned to the awakened sky cosmos, and returned to the sky beyond skies. Xuefei, Gao Qingxian, and the others had already returned. Xuefei, Yin Zhaoge's North Ocean clone, and Pan were currently recuperating in seclusion. Gao Qingxian stayed at the Broad Creed Mountain as a guest, waiting for the two's return. After the two met, Yin Zhaoge only mentioned about the immortal ending sword, and didn't talk about Yang Jian. It wasn't that he didn't trust Gao Qingxian and Xue Chuqing. Rather, it was better for fewer people to know about many things. If more people knew about it, it would mean more traces and clues, which would make it easier for the enemy to deduce. Gao Qingxian and the others could understand this. Merely hearing about the celestial extinguishing ancient sword was enough to make their hearts heavy. It's hard to tell if there'll be a change in the situation now. Let's wait and see. Yin Zhaoge said. Let's feign ignorance first, hoping to find an opportunity to play along with them. Xue Chuqing, Gao Qingxian, and the others nodded. Then, we'll just fake it for 49 years. Gao Qingxian stood up. According to what you said, Zhaoge, the Dao ancestors might be able to deduce the exact interval between your two techniques. Yin Zhaoge nodded. That's right. If the heretics were to scheme against us, the immortal ending sword would only reappear after 49 years. Only then would they release the bait, giving us a chance. Otherwise, if they're focused on hiding the immortal ending sword, we wouldn't be able to do anything. Even so, we still have to adapt to the situation, Xue Chuqing said. In the coming years, we have to pay close attention to the battle between the two heretics. After Yin Zhaoge explained about the immortal ending sword, Xue Chuqing told them about the immortal court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus current situation. While Yin Zhaoge and the others were searching for the immortal extermination sword, the immortal court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus were still fighting intensely. About 50 years ago, the immeasurable heavenly Lord and the future Buddha were locked in a fierce battle over the humanly essenced stone fragment that originally belonged to the Tai Nirvana heavenly Lord. Although the humanly essenced stone fragment had fallen into the hands of the future Buddha, the immeasurable heavenly Lord had never given up. He had been entangled with the future Buddha to this day. The immortal court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus, as well as the Western Pure Lands and the demon race, were constantly waging war against each other. In the end, they still couldn't retrieve the immortal extermination sword, and they even lost the Spirit Tooth Immortal's life. Although the Red Inferno Draw Buddha Lord was heavily injured and couldn't rejoin the battle within a short period of time, the blessed lands of the White Lotus and the demon race were at a greater disadvantage. Previously, I thought that the heretics in Orthodox Buddhism had made a choice, prioritizing the humanly essence stone's fragment over the immortal extermination sword. Xue Chuqing said. From the looks of it now, that's not the case. Instead, they already had other plans. That's right. They didn't prioritize the humanly essence stone's fragment. Instead, it's the exact opposite, Yin Zhaoge pondered and said. I'm guessing that the immeasurable heavenly Lord might continue fighting against the future Buddha like this, all the way until I find the immortal ending sword 49 years later. Feng Yunsheng, Xue Chuqing, and Gao Qingxuan's gazes turned solemn. They understood what Yin Zhaoge meant. At that time, he would give up on the humanly essence stone's fragment for the future Buddha to refine, and suddenly turn back to deal with us. If everything went smoothly, the immortal court might obtain the immortal extermination 4 swords, and the complete immortal extermination formation. Its value far surpassed a single humanly essence stone's fragment. With the two heretics clashing endlessly, our Orthodox Taoism situation would be much more relaxed. Just like how we're currently searching for the immortal extermination sword. Yin Zhaoge's mouth revealed a hint of a smile. By the time we're searching for the immortal ending sword, if their battle still hasn't ended, it'll be beneficial for us to act boldly. It could be considered as luring the snake out of its hole. The other party's intentions are probably to settle the score 49 years later, after seeing how much fun we're having right now. Yin Zhaoge laughed self-mockingly. He shook his head and said, let's pay close attention to the battle between the two heretics. Within the Western Pure Lands, within a Buddhist kingdom, the Dipankara ancient Buddha sat on a green lotus and closed his eyes in deep thought. After a long time, he opened his eyes and muttered to himself, isn't it a little too early? The Buddha stood up from the green lotus and left his Buddhist kingdom. He headed towards the core of the Western Pure Lands. Namo Amitabha, please tell me the path to the Tishita Palace Buddha. Chapter 1577. A relic of Buddha Sakyamuni? Yang Jian pondered. After Sun Wukong's golden body reappeared in the world, I remember that the Grand Supreme Elder once mentioned it. Is Sakyamuni of the Great Laying Temple of the Spiritual Mountain transformed from Taoist Zhuan-Ti, one of the two ancestors of the Western sect? Great Taoist Master Xiandu nodded. That's right. Although I had guessed it long ago, I only confirmed it then. Yang Jian looked enlightened. The person who wants the relic is not the ancient Buddha Dipankara, but Kong Xian? If I'm not wrong, that should be the case. Great Taoist Master Xiandu answered. Yang Jian asked, how many relics are there? Great Taoist Master Xiandu said, according to Grand Master, there should be 5. I wonder how many Kong Xian has now. Yang Jian suddenly smiled. Ancient Buddha Dipankara can't be so kind as to help him gather them, right? However, it's very likely that he used this to exchange for Mahamayuri's help. Great Taoist Master Xiandu said slowly, between the demons and the Buddhists, Mahamayuri has always been neutral. However, 49 years ago he suddenly stopped the demons. It's very likely because of this. As he spoke, Great Taoist Master Xiandu looked at Yang Jian. Therefore, Mahamayuri might still attack in the battle of the immortal extermination ancient sword. Yang Jian smiled. During the ancient God conferment battle, he was a zenith heaven, and I was a great void immortal. Ever since then, I have not had the chance to fight. If we really meet again, I would like to give it a try. I'm afraid that the Tao ancestors will not give me a chance, and want to capture me first. No one can doubt your talent and strength. However, although Mahamayuri is not your nemesis, the 5-colored divine light is extremely domineering. Especially after he entered the Buddhist sect, his strength has increased to another level. You still have to be careful. Great Taoist Master Xiandu said, you created the 8-9 arcane art. No one else can provide you with experience. You can only rely on yourself. You have to be more cautious. Yang Jian nodded. I understand. Thank you for your advice, Uncle Master Xiandu. After saying that, he stood up and bade farewell. After watching him leave, Great Taoist Master Xian Du continued to sit in the side hall. He looked at the brocade box on the ground and remained silent for a long time. After exiting the Tishita Palace, the ancient Dipankara Buddha did not directly return to the Western Pure Lands. Instead, he stopped in the boundless void's outskirts. After a while, someone appeared in the void. It was a Buddha, filled with wisdom and compassion. After seeing the ancient Dipankara Buddha, he nodded. Ancient Buddha, it seems like you have succeeded. The Dipankara ancient Buddha nodded and smiled as well. It's a worthwhile trip. Next, we still have Bodhisattva Lai to instruct fellow Taoists Golden Light to help us pass a message to the Astro Mountain Starry Seas. The deity of Golden Light, an ancient mutated species, the Golden Fur Ho, had entered Taoism to cultivate. During the investiture of the gods era, he had also listened to the lectures of the prime clear Lingbao Tianzuan. However, during the investiture of the gods, he was captured by the Jade Clear lineage's bigwig, the compassionate enlightened master, and became his mount. After the compassionate spiritual master joined Buddhism and became the Guanyin Bodhisattva, the Golden Light deity was also forced to join Buddhism. At this moment, the Buddha in front of the Dipankara ancient Buddha was the Jade Clear bigwig of the past, and the current Buddhist Bhante, the Guanyin Bodhisattva. Although he was referred to as a Bodhisattva, it was different from how Taoism addressed Buddhist Bhantes. In terms of cultivation, the Guanyin Bodhisattva was a Taoism heavenly lord. After joining Buddhism, he attained enlightenment and was a bona fide grand heavenly realm expert. In fact, ever since the Middle Era, he had been studying under the Western Pure Lands Amitabha Buddha. He was known as the righteous Dharma enlightened Buddha, or the Dharma nature Tathagata enlightened Buddha, or Amitabha Bodhisattva. He was one of the Amitabha Buddha's proudest disciples. The Guanyin Bodhisattva was his incarnation in the central blessed lands of Saha. After the Gautama Buddha transcended, the Maitreya Buddha changed the central blessed lands of Saha into the blessed lands of the White Lotus. After the Guanyin Bodhisattva and the other Buddhas left, he returned to the Western Pure Lands. After hearing the Dipankara ancient Buddha's words, the Guanyin Bodhisattva asked, Ancient Buddha, you mean to contact some fellow Taoists of the demon race without affecting the fight for the humanly essence stone fragment? That's right. The Dipankara ancient Buddha smiled and nodded. The Guanyin Bodhisattva revealed a compassionate expression and sighed. Is it for the three clear lineage? That's right, Taoist. The Dipankara ancient Buddha answered. While we, the heretics, and the demon race are not willing to give in to each other, it has given the three clear lineage an opportunity to reap the benefits. Especially now, 3 of the immortal exterminating 4 swords have fallen into his hands. At a critical juncture, the entire situation might change if he is not careful. Hence, we have to do something. I believe the demon race would have the same opinion as well. The Dipankara ancient Buddha said, the indestructible Vajra Buddha and the others are in a hurry. There's no need to disturb them. Let's just continue. Hence, let's change our approach. Let's ask the Golden Light Immortal to help us talk to the demon race fellow Taoists, who are still in the Astro Mountain Starry Seas. Chapter 1578. While they could not be considered to be surrounded by waves from all directions, Yin Zhaoge's intuition told him that the incoming tsunami was not of this scale. As time elapsed, the surging waves would only become more ferocious until they covered every direction and completely surrounded the awakened sky cosmos within a certain region. When that happened, all the tsunamis would be squeezed toward the center, and the awakened sky cosmos would have nowhere to hide. It would be exposed to the enemy's field of vision. The awakened sky cosmos wasn't stationary. Instead, it was constantly on the move. However, the tsunami that was stirring up in spacetime was too violent and swift. Furthermore, there was more than one source. The source of the tsunami seemed to be mobile. Thus, they were able to constantly change their direction and search for the awakened sky cosmos. Of course, the void in the outer realm was too vast. Be it the awakened sky cosmos or the source of these tsunamis, they were both insignificant. If the other party wanted to encircle the awakened sky cosmos, they would need to at least have a starting point and a rough area. Only then would they be able to form an initial encirclement. Then, They would be able to make use of the tsunamis to shake the void and find the exact location of the awakened sky cosmos. Of those who previously left, some are currently returning. Now they're being targeted. Yan Zhaoge's thoughts moved slightly, and he roughly understood the reason. Who left the awakened sky cosmos recently? Within the awakened sky cosmos, there were many people traveling in and out of the sky beyond skies, the roving jade heavens, and the jade spring heavens. However, due to the orthodox Taoism's current situation and the unique nature of the awakened sky cosmos, anyone who wanted to enter or exit the awakened sky cosmos or the void's outskirts would have to report to the pill hall. This would make it easier for them to communicate with each other, and it would also make it easier for the pill hall to receive them when they returned to the awakened sky cosmos. There was a limit to the number of people who could leave the awakened sky cosmos and head to the outer realms. Hence, it wasn't difficult to record them down. Our sky beyond skies, green sky mountains, grave thunder palaces, old palace, Lord Lu, roving jade heavens, scenery peaks, flowing heavens, old Mr. Long, jade spring heavens, cold star mountains, tranquil rock caves, rain sovereign, and Fangzhen mountains, mountain lord Xian emperor. Hearing Yan Zhaoge's question, Ahu immediately reported the name list. Among those who had left the awakened sky cosmos, there was Lu Jinggu of the sky beyond heaven, Long Xingquan of the roving jade heaven, Tong Xinlin of the jade spring heaven, and another newly advanced leakless true immortal, Emperor Xian. Such a top powerhouse's deterrence was not only reflected in a head-on battle, but also in all aspects. Bit by bit, it made people feel as if they were everywhere, giving people a suffocating pressure. In the past, they had always been at odds with each other. Therefore, when they clashed with each other, the orthodox Taoism's activities were much more relaxed. However, even though the blessed lands of the White Lotus and the Immortal Court were still locked in battle, the Western Pure Lands and the demon race had reached a certain degree of compromise. As such, the situation of the Taoist heirs became tense. The reason why Yan Zhaoge had forged the information regarding the Tai Nirvana Heavenly Lord and the Humanly Essence Stone Fragment in the past was to incite a war between the enemies of the two factions, so that his orthodox Taoism could have more time and space to develop. Back then, by a stroke of luck, they had really discovered the remains of the Tai Nirvana Lord and the Humanly Essence Stone Fragment. As a result, the two heretic sects had a great war and had been entangled with each other until now. To Yan Zhaoge and the others, this situation could not be any more ideal. However, the good days seemed to be coming to an end. With the Immortal Extermination Formation diagram and the three ancient swords returning to orthodox Taoism, the Immortal Extermination Formation might reappear within the world. Even Taoist Luya and the other demon race great sages felt pressured. As such, they accepted the Dipankara Buddha's suggestion to suppress Yan Zhaoge and the others first. How ironic! Xuefei shook his head. Due to the war between the Immortal Court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus, the Western Pure Land's indestructible Vajra Buddha is currently leading a group of Buddhist Bantis against a group of demon race great sages. Currently, the indestructible Vajra Buddha and the others were still fighting, while the Dipankara Buddha, the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles, and the others had opened up a second battlefield at the same time. Then came a scene both absurd and serious. On the other side of the battlefield, the Buddhas of the Western Pure Land and the great sages of the demon race were locked in a fierce battle. On the other side of the battlefield, there was another group of Buddhist supremacies and great demons working together to surround and search for the Tao sect's heir. There's nothing wrong with the demon race's reaction, Yan Zhaoge said. This is what a normal person would do. The Immortal Extermination Formation might reappear in the world. Sua Mingzhang and Feng Yinsheng had successively transcended the origin heavenly tribulation, and the orthodox Taoism had gained two grand heavenly immortals. Yan Zhaoge created the fallen deity sword, and his cultivation was getting stronger and stronger. The three golden bodies of the great sage presided over the awakened sky cosmos. Every once in a while, the great sage equaling heaven's true body could be manifested. Moreover, The Rui golden cudgel was also in his hands. Within the past 100 years, the Taoism's 3 clear lineages' prowess had increased at an astounding speed. Such a situation would naturally attract the attention of other forces. To a certain extent, it wasn't impossible for the other forces to temporarily stop fighting and suppress the orthodox Taoism's lineage. However, the Dipankara Buddha and the others must have had other reasons for doing so. Yen Zhaoge chuckled. Let's not talk about whether the other Buddhas of the Western Pure Lands know about this. The Dipankara Buddha most likely knows about the immortal ending sword's whereabouts. What he's doing now is logical, and it's equivalent to helping the immeasurable heavenly Lord by concealing the truth of the immortal ending sword falling into the hands of the immortal court. This would further numb our senses and force us to walk right into their trap. Of course, they would be even happier if they managed to find us this time. Xue Chuqing sighed. Under such circumstances, we're even more eager to obtain the immortal ending sword to reappear the immortal exterminating formation. Still, how are we supposed to search for the sword 49 years later if the situation is still as tense as before? Su Fei frowned. By then, wouldn't we become even more suspicious if we let our guard down instead? Yen Zhaoge lightly rubbed his temples. If we don't know that the immortal ending sword is in the immortal court, we would have to do something to obtain an opportunity for ourselves in order to search for the sword. The others nodded silently. The other party only needed to go along with the flow. If Yen Zhaoge and the others didn't do anything and didn't try their best to obtain an opportunity, it would be equivalent to telling the other party that they already knew that the immortal ending sword was a trap. At the end of the day, everyone was just acting to see who was more realistic. To Yen Zhaoge and the others, the disadvantage was that if the other party realized that they had already seen through the trap, the immeasurable heavenly Lord could just give up on setting up this trap. To him, it would be a pity if he couldn't obtain the immortal exterminating formation. However, Yen Zhaoge and the others had even less hope of obtaining the immortal ending sword. Snatching something from a Tao ancestor head-on was undoubtedly harder than ascending to the heavens. Making use of the bait that the other party had set up was their only chance. Life is like a play, and it all depends on one's acting skills. It's time to compete in acting skills again. Yen Zhaoge slapped his head. Chapter 1580. In other words, we have to find a reason for them to relax their encirclement on the awakened sky cosmos. They might even neglect the threat of us gathering the immortal exterminating 4 swords to a certain extent. Xue Chuqing said. As for the heretics in the Western Pure Lands, they might not necessarily believe it. However, as long as the reason seems sufficient on the surface, they will just go with the flow and pretend to relax the pressure on us, hoping to lure the snake out of its hole. She frowned slightly. Such a reason isn't easy to find. How many existences beneath the Tao realm could rival the immortal exterminating formation? Not only were there few existences beneath the Tao realm that could rival the immortal exterminating formation. Xue Fei frowned as well. We can't let junior apprentice Sister Sikong and the others take the risk, right? To the immeasurable heavenly Lord, the missing heavenly essence stone fragment was much more important than the humanly essence stone fragment he was fighting for against the future Buddha. If we really have no other choice, we can only sell Gao Han. Yen Zhaoge shrugged. Those who sell others will always sell themselves. I believe that the exalted solar luminary would understand. Xue Chuqing and Xue Fei looked at him, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. You should be more serious at this moment. All right. Even without the heavenly essence stone fragment, we still have some ideas, Yen Zhaoge said. Only we still have to ask the incongruence Divine Mother and the others to verify it. Xue Chuqing went into deep thought. Some prime clear lineage's relic? According to what you said, the Jade Illusory Palace should be in the sky. The roving Jade Palace should be in the same situation as well, right? Who can be so sure without actually entering it? Yen Zhaoge smiled. He stood up and walked out of the pill hall. He looked at the changing clouds in the faraway horizon. No matter what, we have to finish our act. Let's patiently pass through these 49 years and wait for the right time for them to release the bait. When that time comes, whether we break the hook and swallow the bait, or get caught by them, or get caught in one fell swoop, it would all depend on our own abilities. Xue Fei and Xue Chuqing stood beside him and nodded. Within the Astro Mountain's starry seas, radiance shrouded the grand plainless heaven. A dot of golden-red fiery light rose from the propping mulberry divine tree, and continued ascending. It flew towards the ethereal spirit palace, that seemed to be at an infinitely high place within the grand plainless heaven's void. In Emperor Dong's palace in the field of chestnut, Eastern Monarch Tai's residence was here. The golden flame flew into the field of chestnut, and manifested the appearance of immortal Luya. He came to the outside of Emperor Dong's palace, but did not enter. Instead, he bowed to the ancient and majestic palace and said, "Your Majesty, please tell me where the Tishita Palace is." No one in the palace answered. Only the sound of a bell rang out. Then, a gust of wind appeared beneath Downlord Luya's feet, lifting him up and sending him out of the plains of chestnut, out of the grand essence heaven, out of the Astro Mountain's starry sea, and into the endless void outside the domain. Downlord Luya's body flashed through the endless void of the outlands. He seemed to have lost all sense of time, as he ascended into an immortal realm. In the fairyland, there was a palace with a simple and ordinary appearance. It was the Tishita Palace. The Taoist child stood at the entrance of the hall, and bowed towards Taoist Luya. "Taoist Luya has come from afar. Your disciple pays his respects." "Are fellow Taoist Xian Du and Huta present?" Downlord Luya asked. "Little old master is in seclusion to refine elixirs. Goddess Hutu is cultivating in the meditation room. She once said that if Downlord comes to visit, you can go see her." With that said, the Taoist child led the way. Downlord Luya entered the Tishita Palace, and followed the Taoist child to a meditation room. In the room, a woman dressed in luxurious clothes sat on a bed. When she saw Downlord Luya enter, she stood up and nodded. "You're here, Downlord." Right beside her, there was an ancient glazed lamp. The speck of light was mysterious and unfathomable, revealing its miraculous nature. Downlord Luya entered the meditation room, and came to the lamp. He said, "Fellow Taoist Hutu, please. I'm here to fulfill my promise." With that said, a zither appeared in his hand. The zither was filled with an ancient aura. When the woman in luxurious clothes looked at it, it was as though she was experiencing the changes of the heavenly Tao. However, the zither only had 4 strings left. The rest were broken. The woman in luxurious clothes was not surprised. She already knew that it was a broken zither. "The lamp is here. Please help yourself. You can take the fire seed devil spirit away. However, this lamp needs to be left in the Tishita Palace." "Please forgive me, Downlord," said the woman in luxurious clothes. "It's fine. I understand." Downlord Luya turned to look at the lamp flame. In his eyes, there seemed to be flames. They were born from the Khanate world. They were extremely mysterious, like the ancestor of all flames. The illusory jade glass lamp's flame was not affected. It continued to dance on its own. However, inside the lamp, there seemed to be some strange sparks flying out and dancing in the lamp flame. The sparks were restrained by the lamp, and could not escape. However, Downlord Luya's Khanate fire essence flew out of his eyes, and landed on the illusory jade glass lamp's light. The perfect lamp seemed to open up a passage. The sparks inside flew out. Then, Downlord Luya's Khanate fire swept the sparks back into his eyes. The lamp returned to normal. The ancient lamp was still burning quietly in the room, illuminating the entire room. "In that case, I'll take my leave. Fellow Taoist Hutu, please greet the Grand Supreme Elder and fellow Taoist Xian Du on my behalf," said Downlord Luya with a smile. The woman in luxurious clothes said, "Take care, Downlord. I won't send you off." No one would have to worry about the other party cheating in the transaction in the Tishita Palace. The Grand Supreme Elder was indeed used to staying quiet and doing nothing, but his existence was enough to suppress the tricks of the ghosts. After watching Downlord Luya leave, the woman in luxurious clothes had a calm expression. She stroked the 4 strings of the broken zither with her fingers. Great Taoist Master Xian Du appeared silently and said, "Wait for the final opportunity." The woman's appearance changed, and she returned to Yang Jian's original appearance. She nodded and said, "That's right." On the other side, Tao Lord Luya left the Tushita Palace and returned to the Astro Mountain's starry sea. He entered the Grand Essence Heaven and landed on the Fusang Divine Tree where he lived. He took out a red gourd and pulled out the stopper. Then, the connately fire in his eyes passed through the sparks and sealed them into the gourd. Young Wuxia, Tao Lord Luya called out softly. A bright sun appeared from afar and landed on the Fusang Divine Tree. It retracted the sunlight and turned into a three-legged crow. It came in front of Tao Lord Luya and said respectfully, "Patriarch, take this and pay attention to the Astro Mountain's starry sea. See if anyone can touch it," said Tao Lord Luya, as he handed the red gourd to the three-legged crow. After the crow took the red gourd, it replied, "Don't worry, Patriarch. I will definitely investigate carefully. Don't be anxious if there's nothing for the time being. Just be careful in the future," instructed Tao Lord Luya. "Yes, Patriarch." The three-legged crow paused for a moment before saying softly, "Patriarch, that zither." Chapter 1581. Dongjun Yang Wuxia concealed his demonic power in front of Tao Lord Luya. Other than his 3 legs, he looked like an ordinary crow. However, he was a demon race great sage, an existence equivalent to a Taoism heavenly lord. The Golden Crow race was created by goddess Nuwa in the primordial era by imitating Luya's demonic form. After that, the Golden Crow race recognized Tao Lord Luya as their ancestor. Tao Lord Luya did not reject it, and the relationship between the two became even closer. Dongjun Yang Wuxia was the only demon race great sage in the race, and the strongest expert in the race. However, he did not take up the position of the clan leader, nor did he stay in the Golden Crow race's ancestral land. Instead, he stayed by Tao Lord Luya's side, acting like a disciple and a trusted aide. Hence, he knew much more than others. He did not treat Tao Lord Luya as an outsider, and Tao Lord Luya did not hide many things from him. "The zither naturally belongs to the Tushita Palace," Tao Lord Luya said. "Or rather, it belongs to the 3 clear lineage." Yang Wuxia showed a look of pity. Tao Lord Luya smiled. "There are many things that can only be gained by giving up. It can't be helped. With the zither, the orthodox Taoism will have a much easier time when the final sword of the immortal extermination 4 swords is born." Yang Wuxia was a little worried. They have the complete immortal extermination formation. Wouldn't it be even harder to deal with the 4 swords? Tao Lord Luya's lips curled up, and he stroked his beard. "It's not that simple. Although I can't be sure, if I'm not wrong, the final immortal extermination ancient sword is either in the Immortal Court, the Western Pure Lands, or the 9 underworlds." Oh, Yang Wuxia was surprised. According to Ho Tu, the orthodox Taoism already knows the approximate location of the immortal extermination ancient sword. Tao Lord Luya smiled. "But they aren't going there to retrieve it. What do you think is the reason?" "It's because the sword already has an owner, and it might even be a Tao realm expert. Our Astro Mountain Starry Seas doesn't have it, and the central blessed lands of Saha doesn't have it either. It's most likely to be in the Immortal Court, or the Western Pure Lands." Tao Lord Luya laughed. "The orthodox Taoism wants to acquire the final sword. Even if the zither goes to them, it will still be used against our enemies. No wonder the Immortal Court and the Western Pure Lands didn't put in any effort to search for the immortal extermination ancient sword. So they already had a plan in mind," Yang Wuxia said thoughtfully. "Did the Earth Queen intentionally leak the news to you?" "That's natural. Let's get involved as well. The more chaotic the situation is, the more chances the Tao sect will have," Tao Lord Luya said. "Otherwise, the enemy will have set up a trap for them to jump into. Their chances of success will be very slim, unless the old lord is willing to intervene." At this point, Tao Lord Luya chuckled and said, "Both parties have their wishful thinking. It's just that it's hard to say who will benefit in the end. The immortal extermination formation is no small matter. Our Astro Mountain Starry Seas naturally needs it." He turned to Yang Wuxia and said, "It's not the right time to deal with the 4 immortal slaying swords. Before that, let's deal with the matter at hand." Yang Wuxia bowed his head. "Yes, ancestor." He kept the red gourd and flew away from the propping mulberry tree. Speaking of which, how did the orthodox Taoism see through the enemy's plan and know that the immortal ending sword already had an owner. Dao Lord Luya sat in a lotus position on the tree trunk. The smile on his face disappeared, and a contemplative expression appeared on his face. Also, the immortal extermination sword that Ho-Tu tossed out in order to enter the Jade Illusory Palace. Has it always been stored in the Tishita Palace? There's news from the Tishita Palace. Within the awakened sky cosmos, within the broad Creed Mountains Pill Hall, Yan Zhaoge let out a long sigh and said to Yan Di, Shuechuqing, Su Fei, and the others, "The fortune that I wanted to exchange for the Jade Illusory Glazed Lamp has been successfully obtained." He explained, "Although the situation is still very difficult for us to succeed, it's still much more hopeful now." Everyone revealed a joyful expression when they heard it. "Let's do our best and wait for the time to come," said Yan Di slowly. Under the undercurrent, everyone was surging. The soul-stirring details would usually far surpass what most people could see on the surface. Many battles might already have their final outcome before they even started on the surface. The true battle had begun much earlier than what the public had expected. Only, the various parties with ulterior motives were still unable to determine who would emerge as the final victor. Everyone could only accumulate their strength in secret and scheme to obtain more chips to increase their chances of victory. For Yan Zhaoge and the Taoism lineage that were developing in the awakened sky cosmos, the following days weren't going to be as good as before. The Dipankara ancient Buddha personally led the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles and other demon race bigwigs to encircle the awakened sky cosmos. In order to prevent their whereabouts from being exposed, Yan Zhaoge and the others greatly reduced the number of people entering and exiting the void's outskirts. This was to prevent the awakened sky cosmos from being targeted by one or a few of them. Then, they would use the sea calming pearl to surround them. Due to this reason, Yan Zhaoge and the others found it harder to obtain information about the outside world. As such, the unique treasures produced by the void's outskirts became more precious to the Taoism martial art practitioners within the awakened sky cosmos. The awakened sky cosmos produced many treasures and resources to begin with. As such, there weren't any major problems. It wouldn't be like the Jade Spring world, which was in dire straits. However, some resources were unique to the void's boundless outskirts. It would be much more difficult for the awakened sky cosmos to obtain them. If there was an extremely important treasure within, then for the time being, he could only wait patiently. Such situations were rare, and the negative effects weren't that great. What Yan Zhaoge and the other higher-ups were more concerned about was the fact that the Taoism lineage's revival momentum seemed to have been interrupted in the past few decades. The so-called momentum seemed invisible and intangible. However, it truly existed. For Gao Qingxian, Yu Zhenbei, Long Xingquan, and the others of the older generation, it didn't matter much. They had experienced much darker and more difficult times in the past. However, for the younger generation, especially those who were born after the creation of the awakened sky cosmos, it was easy for them to feel worried about the situation that seemed to have suddenly turned against them. Under Yan Zhaoge and the others' guidance, the entire awakened sky cosmos was still developing. In fact, it was even accelerating. Only, the acceleration wasn't as ferocious as before. Yan Zhaoge and the others were calm, neither arrogant nor rash. They silently cultivated and waited for the right opportunity. They were temporarily dormant in order to erupt with more power. The next stage would be akin to a carp leaping through the dragon's gate. As such, Yan Zhaoge and the awakened sky cosmos spent their time battling against the Dipankara ancient Buddha and the other bigwigs. Time flew by in a blink of an eye. Another 7 by 7, 49 years passed. Chapter 1582. 49 years passed, and there were many changes both inside and outside of the awakened sky cosmos. While it was not a secret amongst the peak higher echelon experts that Yan Zhaoge had spent searching for the swords, most people naturally did not know about it. In the sky beyond heaven, people lived and multiplied. Martial artists focused on cultivation and were more concerned about the things around them. At this moment on Broad Creed Mountain, a multicolored light suddenly rose from the back mountain, streams of immortal qi circulating. Outside one of the abodes stood a valiant man, who looked to be in his 30s or 40s. His hair was slightly stained with frost, and his features were extremely handsome. Just by standing there, he had an eye-catching presence, as if he was the center of the world. Even the multicolored light in the cave next to the man didn't seem as dazzling in front of him. However, the man looked rather happy at this moment. His eyes were filled with joy as he bowed solemnly towards the cave abode. Master, congratulations on successfully passing the immortal mortal tribulation, pushing open the immortal door, and attaining the leakless body. There were a few people standing behind the man. Their cultivation levels varied, and the person in the lead was an extremely tall and beautiful woman. The few of them were also overjoyed. They bowed solemnly towards the cave abode. Congratulations, Master, for successfully passing the immortal mortal tribulation, pushing open the door of immortality, and attaining the leakless body. The door of the cave residence was pushed open, and a skinny old man walked out. He smiled and said, "Sorry to keep you waiting." It was precisely Broad Creed Mountain's former chief, Yuan Zhengfeng. Looking at that valiant man, he sighed emotionally. Yen Di, how can a lofty heavenly monarch act as a protector for a martial saint's tribulation? You and I both know that you can only rely on yourself during the immortal mortal tribulation. Others can't help you, so there's no need for you to wait here. A faint smile appeared on Yen Di's face. It is only natural for a disciple to stand guard for his master. Yuan Zhengfeng wasn't a pretentious person either. He laughed and shook his head. It's enough that you have the heart. Why bother with etiquette? The younger generation is the backbone of our sect, and even the outland. Don't lose the bigger picture because of a small gain. Counting the days, the 49-year period should be up soon, right? The 49-year period is about to come. Yen Di first answered Yuan Zhengfeng's question before saying, shedding mortality and becoming an immortal will always be different. This disciple will definitely come this time. Yuan Zhengfeng waved his hand and said with a smile, the student surpasses the master, carrying on the past and opening up the future. To be able to see today's flourishing scene, this old man is satisfied. For me to be able to shed my mortal body and become an immortal, it can be said that it is all thanks to you young people. It is all thanks to the current environment of the sky beyond heavens and the strength of our sect. This old man cannot boast about himself. Yen Di smiled. Master, with your current cultivation base and longevity, you are still very young. It would not be wrong to say that you are a youth. You are not an old man, much less an old man. If I'm used to it, it means that my mental state has aged. Yuan Zhengfeng laughed self-deprecatingly. If it wasn't for the fact that I was spurred on by all of you, I would only be passing my days no matter how much longer I have. The tall woman by Yen Di's side now spoke. Master, it is precisely because your heart has yet to dissipate that you are able to improve unceasingly now. You can look forward to even greater accomplishments in the future. This woman was naturally Yen Di's senior apprentice sister, Yuan Zhengfeng's personal disciple Fu Enshu. Beside Yen Di and her stood Feng Qi and the others. Although their cultivation bases varied, they were all Yuan Zhengfeng's personal disciples. Today, they were here to welcome their master and congratulate him. Objectively speaking, Yuan Zhengfeng's talent in martial arts was very high. If he had grown up in the current environment of the Broad Creed Mountain, his achievements would have been even more eye-catching. Back then, the environment and experiences of the Eight Extremities world had dragged Yuan Zhengfeng down to a certain extent. He might not have been able to reach the limits of his own potential. Fortunately, he still managed to catch up with the great development of the sky beyond heavens and the Broad Creed Mountain. Cultivating wholeheartedly without any distractions, Yuan Zhengfeng still managed to ascend to a height that many people might not be able to reach in their entire lives. Therefore, although Yuan Zhengfeng's long-lost sharpness and drive arose in his heart, he did not feel too much pity for his life, nor did he have any thoughts of blaming others. Having experienced the darkest times of the Broad Creed Mountain in the Eight Extremities world, his state of mind was very peaceful. He was already much luckier than his master Zhan Shilo, senior apprentice uncle Zhan Dongge, and the others. He was also luckier than many people of the same generation. Perhaps I can still continue to advance. However, it's merely the icing on the cake for the revival of our Taoism. Yuan Zhengfeng smiled slightly. The future is ultimately created by all of you. Being able to witness the golden age and contribute to it. This old man is very comforted. Feng Qi said. The golden age is gradually getting stronger. Our Taoism's experts have been continuously emerging all these years. Speaking of immortal realm experts, other than you who pushed open the immortal door, not long ago, the ingenious Flying Peaks Red Lotus Cliffs Brocade Emperor had successfully duo Qi's fused aura, passed the pure profound tribulation, and ascended to the tranquil profound immortal realm. Is that so? Yuan Zhengfeng nodded repeatedly. That's truly a joyous occasion. Before meeting Yang Jian, who was residing in the Tushita Palace, Yin Zhaoge, Fu Yunqi, and Chao Jia had studied the Grand Clear Direct lineage and recreated the art of severing one's emotions and parasitizing. With this art, the Brocade Emperor, Fu Yunqi's future path was finally clear and smooth again. After these years of hard work, he had successfully created 2 clones, which were entrusted with his 2 daughters' emotions. Forgetting his emotions wasn't heartless, and he returned to the righteous path. Compared to the black-clothed Brocade Emperor's attempt to borrow the grand simplicity splendor cloud, this was a better method. After solving all the problems in the true immortal realm, Fu Yunqi finally attempted the pure profound tribulation and successfully passed the tribulation. With the duo Qi's fused aura, he ascended to the profound immortal realm, and there was another sovereign in the sky beyond skies. Oh, it seems like I have to go to the Red Lotus Cliff, Yuan Zhengfeng said. Fu Yunqi smiled slightly. There's no hurry. Perhaps it's the Brocade Emperor's turn to come to our place. Generally speaking, such a joyous occasion would be kept a secret. If it was announced to the whole world, the other forces that had no grudges against each other would usually send people to congratulate them. If it was a coincidence that someone from 2 forces ascended to the immortal realm at the same time, they would send people to congratulate each other, and the other forces would send 2 groups of people to attend the ceremony. However, if one of the forces had an expert of a higher level, such as the Brocade Emperor, according to the tacit etiquette, the Broad Creed Mountain's immortal emperor, Yuan Zhengfeng, and the other forces' representatives would go to the Red Lotus Cliff together. While Yuan Zhengfeng congratulated Fu Yunqi, he would also receive the gifts from others. Such a situation was extremely rare, but it wasn't unprecedented. So, everyone just had to follow the rules. However, Fu Yunqi's words made Yuan Zhengfeng slightly stunned. Although the Broad Creed Mountain's current status and power far surpassed the Red Lotus Cliff, the Broad Creed Mountain's style in the sky beyond skies wasn't domineering. This kind of thing wouldn't break the established rules. There was only one possibility for Fu Yunqi and the Red Lotus Cliff to go to the Broad Creed Mountain instead. In the Broad Creed Mountain, there was an expert of a higher level than the profound immortal realm. Could it be Zhaoge? Yuan Zhengfeng thought for a while and revealed a joyful expression. At this moment, before he finished his sentence, 5 colored lights shot up to the sky from another cave manor in the back mountain of the Broad Creed Mountain. Roiling rainbow lights filled the entire heaven and earth, continuously spreading towards the surroundings. As the wind and clouds surged, it seemed to have enveloped the entire sky beyond skies, and was even sweeping outwards. Recommending the Urban God, Shirshinshu Frowny Face bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1586. In the faraway void, a demonic wind and Buddha light suddenly flickered, obstructing Yin Zhaoge's group's path of retreat. Yin Zhaoge and the others weren't surprised. The reason why the other party could catch up to them was because they purposely revealed their tracks and left behind clues. The ferocious demonic wind permeated the surroundings, enveloping the entire universe as if it wanted to devour Yin Zhaoge and the others. Suddenly, thunderbolts exploded within the void. Lightning radiances surged, forming an independent heaven and earth. While protecting Yin Zhaoge and the others, it also isolated the demonic wind outside. Wind and thunder continuously surged, clashing intensely against each other. The newcomer was a demon race great sage. Currently, he was facing off against the southern extremity longevity emperor. The two grand heavenly realm experts were clashing against each other. As they clashed, the profundities of their concepts cancelled out a little, causing their true appearances to be revealed in front of Yin Zhaoge and the others. Amidst the thunderbolts, an old man wearing a crown and a Taoist robe stood above the 9 heavens. Streaks of thunderbolts seemed to have transformed into a carriage that carried him. Fragrant clouds covered the entire area. It was the Jade Clear lineage's style, but it was unique. Under his control, the incomparably violent thunderbolts were orderly. They displayed the opening of chaos, the changes in space, the circulation of the 5 elements, the birth of myriad existences, the convergence of yin and yang, the alternation of day and night, and various other profundities. The profundities of the myriad existences were displayed to their fullest within the thunderous sound. It was one of the Taoism Heavenly Court's divine palaces 4 imperials, the southern extremity longevity emperor. On the other side of the thunderbolt ocean, a tall figure stood amidst the demonic winds. The other party stood upright like a human. He wore armor and a silver helmet. He held a crescent spade in his hand, and his voice was like a crane's cry that shook the 9 heavens. From afar, there was only one head and one face. But up close, there were people all around. There were eyes in front, eyes behind, and eyes everywhere. There were also mouths to the left and right. 9-headed great sage. After seeing the other party's appearance, Yin Zhaoge squinted his eyes. The person who was facing off against the southern extremity longevity emperor was none other than the great sage of the demon race, known as the 9-headed bug. He had once shaken the world during the middle journey to the West era. He was a winged insect, the ancient divine bird of the 9 phoenixes. He was also known as the ghost chariot or 9-headed bird. During the Middle Era, he was nearly beaten to death by Yang Jian and Yang Erlang. After that, he lived in seclusion and cultivated. Only now did he return to the world. A single gale could slay countless Taishu heavenly monarchs. Now, hundreds and thousands of such gale condensed, slashing the heavens and splitting the earth, and slashing towards Yin Zhaoge. Jade-green radiance flickered within Yin Zhaoge's eyes, and the immortal extermination sword in his hand changed. Countless sword lights intertwined, transforming into thousands of sword formations. They countered each other's moves, and blocked the 9 heavens gale that was tearing the heavens apart. At the same time, the cloth sack Arhat suddenly appeared behind him. He held a bag in his hand, and came crashing down towards his head. The cloth sack Arhat gave up on Gao Han, and wanted to deal with him first. Yin Zhaoge raised his other hand, and took the initiative to attack his opponent's bag. At this moment, his palm seemed to have transformed into an existence that resembled an axe, yet wasn't an axe. Resembled a banner yet wasn't.